chilly as you get to the higher elevations. There's still plenty of snow on those mountain peaks. But you're going to drive east until you see Les Schwab on the right side, the south side of the road. You'll see our ESPN 700 van. It's on 1200 East. And we're going to be hanging out here for the remainder of the show. Very excited to be here. They've got incredible deals going on right now at Les Schwab Tires. We have some University of Utah Stadium bags to give away. You know what the stadium bag is, right? The clear bag that you're actually allowed to bring into the stadium. We're also giving away some emergency road kits at Les Schwab Tires. And, of course, $60 instant savings when you purchase 4 tires. In fact, $120 of instant savings when you purchase premium tires. So come hang out with us today as we'll take you through some information, some entertainment. At least that's my hope on the Sean O'Connell Show. James Peterson is producing back in our Broadway studios, and James has lined up quite a show for you today. James, is this one of those days where you feel like, you know what, I might pat myself on the back because I put together a pretty nice show? Do you do that? Do you gloat at least to yourself?
I mean, if I was a really prideful person, I might, OC. But I try to be a little. I try to live with humility.
Oh,
so
okay.
you
You're
know,
just too humble
just
for
another
that?
day. No, no, just playing here. But I do try to do that. But I do feel really good about this guest list. Matt Muehlbach,
Yes.
going to start off the show on this national championship game Monday. He's been awesome for us. The listeners of the Bill Riley Show are already super familiar with him, but I've been really thrilled that he's been willing to come on, and he's had some great conversations with you as well. So we've been able to continue having Matt Muehlbach as a guest, and he's one of the best college basketball analysts in the country. So he's a perfect guy to preview tonight's national championship game. Scott Mitchell, as we do every Monday at noon. Mike Yam, our friend from the Pac-12 now NFL Network, gonna hop on as we kind of ramp up our draft coverage, and then. I don't know. Do you want to introduce the big one?
No, come on. This is the big one,
This
James.
is the big
come on.
Alex Jensen.
Baby.
With an assist from our guy Alonzo, scheduling Alex Jensen to come on the show at 1:00 today. So in the middle of this Mavs play-in run, as they inexplicably make a play-in tournament berth, technically. The Suns could still overtake them, but it would basically the Suns would have to win the rest of their games, the last 3 or 4 games, and the Mavs would have to lose their last 3 or 4 games. So unlikely that the Mavs will not avoid the play-in. So it's going to extend Alex Jensen, or it's going to delay Alex Jensen's first official day on the job by a few days, if not a week, unfortunately, for Runnin' Utes fans. But excited to have him on.
He started his duties, at least this week, by coming on the Sean O'Connell Show. That's the important thing. We're gonna look back at today. We're gonna say, you know what, Alex Jensen, he's doing the yeoman's work.
Yeah.
That a Utah head coach should do.
And you
jumping on the home of the Utes.
Was it you that kind of semi-reported or parroted the reporting that he's been doing basically part-time work as the head coach job, about 10 hours at least. 10 hours a week, right, for Runnin' Utes head coaching duties.
Yes, we did see Josh Furlong.
As Furlong,
did a great job.
That's right, okay.
And reported on the contract details for Alex Jensen.
That's right.
I
forgot if that was your. Yeah. I forgot if that was your sourcing that was telling you that. It was in that. It was in the contract details article by Josh Furlong.
My exclusive source, which is Josh Furlong's written articles that are easily accessible to all of our listeners. But my source told me that, look, Alex Jensen is he's splitting time right now, and it's a complicated thing, and he knows it's a complicated thing. And anyway, Alex Jensen at 1:00 today, that's going to be a lot of fun. Make sure to set an alarm on your phone, set an appointment. If you don't want to listen to me for the first 2 hours of the show today, I'll be slightly offended, but I'll get over it. As long as you're willing to tune in for Alex Jensen at 1:00. We'll make that a tacit agreement on the Sean O'Connell Show. If you're one of my haters out there and you're accidentally hearing my voice, that's fine. But you got to at least acknowledge when James and Alonzo and Vu up there, when they give us a time with Alex Jensen, you at least have to, all right, begrudgingly tune in at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, it should be awesome, and it goes without. I mean, it shouldn't go without saying that this is a big deal for him to be able to make time on local radio when he's not yet finished with his main gig that he's had for this season. Like I mentioned, they're gonna have at least one game of postseason basketball in the play-in tournament, more than likely, coming up this next week. So he's busy with the Mavs. They're not just playing out the string here and waiting for the last three for this week to get over with. They're gonna have at least one more, maybe a whole other week.
Ownership and fans are probably like, all right, fine, we'll play out this string. Coaches and players are just like, we're going to do our job. We're going to do it to the best of our ability. Everyone else in Dallas is just like, we know, like, you traded away your best player, and then the guy you brought back got injured. Like, stop. Like, don't pretend that this is actually going to be a thing. But you know what? I as long as it's a reality for Utah basketball and as long as it's a reality for Alex Jensen, I will take the opportunity to tell you that his desire to finish things out in Dallas, while it is inconvenient from the Utah Athletics perspective, because it is. It just is. There's nothing that makes it a better situation for Utah that they were asked to and required to allow him this runway, right? It doesn't help the head start of Utah basketball. It's actually, from the short-term perspective, it's actually kind of a big ask that Mark Harlan and Taylor Randall and everyone signed off on, which is great, which is the right thing to have done. But it's, in my opinion, it's worth stating that having a head coach whose deepest desire in this transition was to make sure that he did things the right way, to do things that felt right, right? And he said that at his press conference. It just felt like the right thing to do. How many people in sports, which is now just big business, right? How many people in big business do things just because it's the right thing to do on a reliable basis? Like on a consistent, well, why'd he do that? Because it's the right thing to do. But why did he do this? Because it's the right thing to do. Well, why did she make that decision? Because it was the right thing to do. How many people are still doing that in 2025 when there's so much at stake? There's so many dollars being thrown, and there's so many voices that are like, okay, but I want you here, and I want you here at this time. To be able to say, I'm doing it this way because it's the right thing to do, is an important thing for Utah sports, for Utah basketball. It's a significantly important thing that the guy that you hired, nobody in the world, James Peterson, nobody in the world, all of you out there listening, would have been like, Alex Jensen didn't finish out the season with the Mavs. How dare he? Everyone in sports would have been like, yeah, the Mavs shot themselves in the foot twice, and he's jumping ship. And that's exactly what I would have done. Everyone would have been like, yep, right thing to do, good decision. But Alex Jensen felt like, you know what, not the right thing to do to just bail out. So he's finishing out the year, even though it makes his life way more difficult and it's way less convenient. So I just got to give him credit for that, because it's only going to be a reality for another week or two, and it's going to be a tiny little footnote in the Alex Jensen trivia when it's all said and done, 20 years from now, when we're looking back on 2 national championships and 6 Final Four runs. No one's going to remember that Alex Jensen, when he took the job, he decided he needed to finish it out in Dallas in the play-in tournament because it's the right thing to do. So I'm just going to take the opportunity to celebrate that as long as we have a chance.
Yeah, it's not a negative thing at all. There's not a way to look at this negatively. Of course, you can look at it as, hey, it's an inconvenient. You can be concerned as to what the few weeks delay how that might affect recruiting. Sure, that's valid. But all you got to do is look down the road 40 miles. Kevin Young, he stayed with the Suns, and they played a whole first-round playoff series. So Alex is going to start at least a week before
and by
Kevin
the way,
Young did last season. And Kevin Young, it did not affect recruiting at all, as we've seen.
It did hurt them. And they're in a slightly different situation with the checks being written. But your point is well made, because if you're bringing in the right kind of person, if you're recruiting the right kind of person to Utah basketball, which of course is the goal here, how many college athletes are going to look at that and just be like, wait, this guy wanted to fulfill his commitment to an NBA team? How many people are going to look, how many families are going to be like, oh no, this guy will actually fulfill his promises to you. I don't know if I want you to play for that guy.
What a terrible thing. What a terrible character attribute.
When he starts something, he finishes it. I don't know. I don't know if you want to play for that.
I don't want you to learn that kind of lesson in college.
Yeah. Let's pump the brakes on that kind of character development, okay? I just want you to learn how to dribble. So, anyway, good for Alex Jensen. Maybe we'll have time. Maybe we'll have time to talk about that portion of his life on the show today. That's 1 o'clock. Set your clock. Set the appointment. Not the biggest story nationally today, Alex Jensen coming on the Sean O'Connell Show, although it should be. You've got a national championship basketball game tonight on the men's side of things. You saw UConn crowned as national champions in the women's basketball world. Gino Auriemma, he's won 12 of these things now?
Yeah.
13 trips?
12th national championship, which now makes UConn women's basketball the winningest college as far as championship goes, the winningest college basketball program in history, because UCLA had that title for so long with 11, 10 with Wooden, and then the last one in the mid-90s. He's now overtaken UCLA, and he's done it in like the last 30 years is about all it's taken him to win 12. It's incredible.
If you didn't get a chance to hear Gino Auriemma on the Dan Patrick Show today, you can find that on the ESPN 700 Sports app. You can find anything that you missed live on our shows at ESPN700sports.com. We've got the on-demand section. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. And if you didn't listen to the conversation with Gino and Dan Patrick live on your drive to work today, that's fine. Take some time and go listen to it, because there's this emerging thing in the modern world of college sports, and I guess to some extent in pro sports too, although it's been around in pro sports longer, and they touched on this in the interview, the transactional nature of college sports on the men's side has for a lot of people become problematic. Has for many people, and Jim Nantz was talking about this week. He's not on the broadcast anymore. Ian Eagle took over for him, right? Jim Nantz was talking about, like, hey, man, like, NCAA tournament might not be what you think it's supposed to be 20 years from now. And I'm like, okay, is this like a yelling at the clouds kind of a thing? Is this a get off my lawn kind of a thing from Jim Nantz? But he brought up a lot of really good points that we've heard made before, and that Gino Auriemma and Dan Patrick talked about on their show, on Dan Patrick's show this morning, about the transactional nature of athletics at the college level, and so many times very short-term transactions being a difficult thing for the old school fan to digest and to swallow. And by the way, a difficult thing for even the new school fan who has less of an attention span to follow and to care about. Right? Like the millennials and zennials and Gen Zs and whatever, it's scientific. It's proven that we have less patience than our predecessors, that we have a shorter attention span than that we do not like to have to think too hard and do too much research. It's like this, we are very snack friendly. We don't want the slow cooked meal necessarily all the time. We want the snack. And so if you're like, you know what, I really love this Cooper Flag cat, I'm going to watch Duke. And then next year he's not at Duke. You're like, well, I'm not watching Duke anymore. So now what am I watching? Okay, I'm watching the Utah Jazz. Cool. And that's great if you're a Cooper Flag fan. If that's great if you're Cooper Flag. That's great potentially if you're the Utah Jazz. It's not great if you're Duke, right? Because instead of being invested in a thing that is kind of a long-standing, long-form sort of project, people now, fans, are like some of them are flaky, if that's the right term. Some of them are, well, they just don't have the attention span for it. And others, right? This has happened with Utah. This has happened with BYU. Others, the old school fans, are like, no, I prefer the non-snack. Give me the crock pot meal. I want to know what this guy was like when he was a freshman and then a sophomore and then a junior. And maybe he was good enough to go to the NFL and I'll follow him there after his junior year. Or more likely, look at this. I got this person for 4 years. And I've developed a one-sided, in most cases, relationship with them in my mind of like why I like them, what I know about them, how much I've seen of them. I heard this interview with so-and-so 2 years ago, and he's still here in the same uniform. Gino R.M. and Dan Patrick got into that sort of change that we've discussed plenty on the show and how it is affecting things both competitively and from a consumer standpoint in college sports. And Gino Auriemma and his UConn basketball team were far less influenced by the modern era of college basketball than a lot of their competition even. I mean, Paige Beckers came in with a lot of fanfare and hype, right? Paige Beckers stayed at UConn after being a freshman All-American and the next big thing.
Player of the year as a freshman, even OC, like national player of the year.
You're right,
when
national
she
player
came
of the year.
in. Yeah,
and then kind of like injury and some of that stuff took her out of the spotlight to some degree.
And Caitlin Clark's bursting on the scene also would have taken her out of the spotlight anyway, even if she hadn't have been hurt that first huge Caitlin Clark year.
The rise of Caitlin Clark, the rise of Angel Reese, the rise of the Cavender twins, which they're not anywhere near the basketball player that Paige Beckers is, the rise of Haley Van Lith, like all of these things could have had someone like Paige Beckers, and look, she's only one. Azzy Fudd was the better player this year. In any case, Paige Beckers stuck it out and did the thing and, hugged her coach and cried when she came off the floor for the last time in a UConn uniform. And it was impactful in her life, impactful in the UConn fans' life, impactful in Gino Auriemma's life. And it was what college basketball was and we took for granted 10, 15, 20 years ago and is now uncommon. Is now it's a novelty to have a star player like her, to have someone decorated like her play in one place for her entire career. And it's, by the way, it's way more common still on the women's side of things than on the men's side of things. The transfer portal is less active in women's basketball than it is in men's basketball. And whether it's better or worse is for you to decide, but the conversation is worth having, and it was really interesting to hear one of the greatest coaches of all time in any sport talk about what it means to still today in 2025 be doing it the way that UConn basketball and Gino Auriemma are doing it.
Absolutely.
And Dan Patrick, of course, is one of the great interviewers in the business and got a lot of good stuff. So don't go find that interview while you're listening to my show. Wait until after the drive with Spence Checketts, maybe.
Yeah.
And then, don't do it during Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell. Don't do it during the drive, and certainly don't do it during the Sean O'Connell show. But find that on demand at some point and listen to what it means.
Yeah, it was really good, and Gino was able to say, yeah, I'm grateful that the women's game has not become as volatile as the men's game, not just with the transfer portal, but also because WNBA doesn't let you declare for the draft officially until after your third year out of high school. So it's a lot like college football. In fact, it's exactly like college football where guys have to guys have to wait a few years anyway, so they feel like they might as well stay in college. And then a lot of these women are staying a fourth or fifth year because of the starting salaries being less than what the stars can make in NIL if they stay in college. So it's a good thing. You get that old school feel that a lot of the old school fan that you've been describing, OC, really likes with the women's college basketball game.
And why on a men's national championship day is that a good starting point? Well, because look at Houston. Houston operating in this world of one-and-done players and operating in this world of especially free agency, Kelvin Sampson and the Houston Cougars are about as consistent of a roster as you can find in the men's game of college basketball right now.
They really are. They've got not all of them, in fact, most of them, they spent their freshman or sophomore year at another place and they've transferred in. So they're not unique in that they've got guys who started at Houston and are going to finish at Houston, but they're unique in the fact that you have guys who may have started somewhere else, but they're like Gabe Madsen was from the University of Utah. Didn't start at the University of Utah as a running Ute, but he spent 4 years with the running Utes. That's what Kelvin Sampson and the Houston Cougars have been able to do the last few years.
So I'm proposing this, and I'm going to bring it up probably 10 times on the show today. I'm proposing, in the interest of the rarity that we see in men's basketball and even how kind of unique it is in women's basketball and how unique it is in pro sports, Alex Ovechkin just scored his 895th goal, overtook Wayne Gretzky on the all-time NHL goals scored list, and he scored every one of those goals for the Washington Capitals. He did not bounce around. He didn't we need to have some kind of award, and in college athletics, make it second to the Heisman Trophy for its prestige, of someone who is a championship caliber, all-conference caliber, like an elite level player, and they finish their career at one spot. They start and finish their career in one place. Give that person some kind of an award, because that's going to be increasingly rare in the world of college sports.
Yeah, incentivize staying in one place.
And you know what?
With a great award. Yeah,
you're absolutely incentivize it, not just with a trophy, because ultimately those don't matter to everyone. They probably don't matter to most people these days. Incentivize it also. NCAA, I know you're listening, all right? I know that the power maker, the power players.
We're huge in Indianapolis, the Sean O'Connell show.
Yes, we're the number one show there. At least, what would that be? That would be from noon to 3 Central Time. All right? When you're parsing out how you can actually enforce this new salary cap with the House settlement in college sports, I want you to put something in there like the NBA has done. Put a mechanism in there from the NIL front or the revenue distribution front to where if you start and finish at the same school, you get extra money. Make it incentivize these people to do that and make it meaningful. Not like, hey, we'll give you an extra 10 grand, because elite level players right now are leaving college sports as multi-millionaires, all right? Arch Manning, when he's done at Texas, is going to have more money than 99.9% of the people listening to this show, and certainly more than the guy hosting the show, will have. Lifetime. That kid at 21 years of age is going to have more money than all of us, all right? And guess what? Arch Manning is probably going to start and finish at the same place. So make him eligible for the Supermax bonus, all right? If you stay where you started, give that person a little spiff. Give that person a little something extra. If Paige Beckers is going to go through the adversity of player of the year to injured to everyone else gets the attention to, oh my gosh, she's never going to get it done, to I'm a national champion now, Give that girl the extra $1 million in the NIL slush fund that you got sitting around. I'm sure there's so much of it at UConn. I mean, I know that these are high-level things, and I haven't fleshed it out enough as to how you actually make it happen, but it should be a thing that we incentivize in college athletics, that people will start and they will stay. And by the way, that's coming from a guy who transferred, all right? So I'm not disparaging anyone who transferred.
Hypocrite.
I'm not being hypocritical here. I'm saying I should not have been eligible for any kind of loyalty bonus, right? I feel totally justified in having transferred. It made sense for me, for my career, etc. But if I was a guy, if I was a Britton Covey, yes, give that guy an extra bit of love. Give that guy an extra $100,000. Give that guy an extra car. You know, extend the lease on the Ram truck for an extra 5 years instead of capping it when he graduates. Whatever it is, loyalty bonuses should be a thing in college sports moving forward. Sean O'Connell Show is brought to you by Les Schwab Tires today and every day. They'll take care of you and any of your car's needs. They've got tires. I'm looking at big piles of them. We're here at Les Schwab in Lehigh today. They've got wheels. That means the rims, the lugs, all of that stuff. They've got the accessories that you need. And we've got some emergency road kits to give away. So Les Schwab Tires. Tell them OC sent you, or come see me in person and grab a set of 4 new tires. They've got excellent deals going on right now. We've got so much left to talk about on the show. Matt Muehlbach is going to join us next. National championship game tonight. It is Florida versus Houston. It is 1 seed versus 1 seed, of course, because all 4 of the Final 4 teams were the 1 seeds. This is happening tonight, about 6:50 on CBS. Matt Muehlbach's going to join us next to preview the national championship game. Sean O'Connell Show on Utah's #1 sports talk, your home of the Utes, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
Uzan now with 35 seconds left. Sharp, the jumper, he's got it! Wow, how about that? Houston cuts it to 3 with 32.4 to go. Floated upstairs, knocked away, claimed by Sharp. Wilson goes back, he fires! No good! Slammed down! It's Tucker! This one's for the lead. It's good. Long one, James, knocked away, back outside, Proctor tosses it up. It's no good! The dream remains alive for the Houston Cougars!
Oh, Houston with the comeback. That sound courtesy of CBS Sports. Ian Eagle, Grant Hill, Bill Raftery on the call. Unbelievable closing sequence. The final, minute 14 of this game-ish was some of the craziest stuff you've ever seen. Also insane, and a huge bugaboo of mine with college basketball. Duke, we talked all year about the insane scoring droughts that teams go on. Now, a lot of times it is bad teams that get skunked for 5, 6, 7 minutes at a time. Duke went 11 minutes in the second half without a field goal. There was an 11-minute stretch where their only points came from free throws. Now, good for you getting to the line, and I've said this is the solution before in the past. I've said, look, once your scoring drought gets to 5 minutes long, every shot attempt has to be at the rim. Every shot attempt has to be a drive. Every shot attempt has to be get somebody into the lane and draw a foul so you can get some points. And that's great, but it's not great if that's all John Shire's getting from his team in the second half of a game that they largely controlled. So I put a poll question out at Real OC Sports. You know how I love to do that. About what the biggest story was for you in the Houston versus Duke semifinal, Final Four, 1 versus 1 seed. What the biggest thing was for you, the biggest story was in that game as you're watching. Because what you saw was another stellar performance from Cooper Flagg. Now, he did miss that kind of into the lane semi-turnaround. Would have been very Christian Laettner-esque had he been able to hit that shot. He did miss that shot. But that's one of those things that I'm like, okay, well, he's an 18-year-old reclassified high school senior who happens to be the best player in college basketball. I give it a pass. If he was a senior taking that shot and he missed it, I probably would have been like, oh, man, you have to come through in that situation. So maybe my hope for Cooper Flagg to end up with the Utah Jazz is causing me a little bit of a biased reaction there. But what was the missed shot was a story, certainly. So what's a bigger story? Houston's resilience? The Duke collapse? Just Cooper Flagg being awesome? Only 3.2% of the respondents of the poll so far think that the missed shot for Cooper Flagg was the biggest story from Houston versus Duke as they were trying to advance to a national championship game. 48%, and I think you're right. I think this is the real answer, even though I certainly am paying attention to a missed shot from Cooper Flagg, and I am paying attention to a collapse by Duke. And I'm certainly captivated by Cooper Flagg's ability as a player like everyone else in the country is. Houston's resilience in this game was the story. A team that appeared to be kind of out of it with very little time left to play, plugging away. Full court defense, interrupting the inbound passes, put back dunks on rebounds. I mean, Houston hangs on, Houston survives, Houston advances, and now tonight Houston has a chance to win a national championship. Matt Muehlbach, college basketball insider, kind enough to join me now on the Sean O'Connell Show to preview this matchup, to digest how we got here out of the Final Four games. Matt, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Great. I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
The Duke collapse or Houston's resilience? What stuck out for you more at the end of this Final Four game?
Wow, both. I mean, it probably a little bit of Duke. The collapse was tough. I mean, it was because I still think they're the best team in the country. But as we know, the best team doesn't always win that tournament, and you've got to, that's the hardest part about it. You got to play six, really good full games, and I do believe, I feel strongly that their lack of schedule hurt them. And I'll tell you something else. You mentioned Houston's resilience. Pac-12, I'm a Pac-12 guy, right? Arizona, I went to Arizona. I've been working with the Pac-12 network till it closed last year. Now I'm with Fox and ESPN. But, I remember early on this season in the league and listening to Arizona fans in Tucson. And one of the reporters out here made an interesting observation, which I was like, that's really dead on. And that is, he said, not only is that Big 12 league really good, but he said teams never quit. And not that really any team quits in the high-level basketball, but there was something about the Big 12 about how they don't quit and they fight, man. It's to some degree a little bit of a rock fight, with that league, and it really proved itself out because I certainly thought Duke was much more talented than Houston.
Well, yeah, and I think even if you didn't get a chance to watch this game and you're like, how did it play out this way? You can kind of just pull up the box score and be like, oh, well, that's how. I mean, Houston,
yeah,
double-digit rebound advantage here. That's that's kind of, you're like, okay. I mean, you get Malawach into some foul trouble by being extra physical, and suddenly you've got a recipe. Now, that's if you didn't watch it. You probably didn't realize just how by the fingernails Houston was able to pull this thing off. But what does it say about Kelvin Sampson that, this model and this identity that he's tried to establish with Houston, being a big defensive stopping type team? Look, they're not exactly like a Cinderella here. They're not underdogs. They're a one seed, for hell's sake. They had the same regular season record as Duke, but the common conception was, hey, Duke is the best team in the country. They got the best player in the country. They are the more talented team. They are the blue blood, and you're going to have to pull off something magical to win this. It felt like Houston, even as Duke built some significant leads and even as time was ticking down, it never felt like Houston, I guess, there was no bad body language, Matt. There was no like, oh, they're starting to fold, they're starting to fade.
Yeah, and your point was dead on. They you could see it show up on the offensive rebounds, right? They just kept fighting there, and that's where they won the game. They won it on the glass. Duke was not able to defend the glass on defense as well as, And I'll tell you the other piece that Houston does, and this is probably a good segue into tonight. The last 4 or 5 years, Houston has had a similar type team, a similar defense. Right now, they're number one in the nation on the KenPom metrics in defensive efficiency. So that's not a surprise. I'll tell you what the surprise is. They're number one in the nation in three-point shooting. And I don't ever remember Houston being a three-point shooting team in the last 4 or 5 years. In fact, that's what hurt them. They would, their tempo was pretty slow, and they weren't a great shooting team. And that you have to be able to make threes, especially in a comeback like that. And I can't remember the exact number, but I want to say they were like 12 of 25 or something from three on Saturday. And that was the sneaky number that won the game for them, being able to make threes. When their offense kind of was struggling at times, and that's why this Kelvin Sampson team I think has a chance to win. And by the way, I love Kelvin. He's an awesome guy. Arguably, he's the best coach right now in the country. What he's done, the culture he's put together there. I love his press conferences. He really doesn't give coach speak. He talks about other people, other teams, situations. It's really just fun to listen to him. He's really thoughtful. And I played against him when he was at Washington State. Always loved his competitive, fire and the teams he put together. And I'm just not surprised where he's at right now. It's really cool to see. It's a great story.
10 of 22 was the three-point shots number, good for 45.5%. L.J. Cryer especially, 6 of 9 from three, and came through with some clutch shots there. I get obsessed. We all do, right? We do this. There's entire shows, and in fact, there's entire identities of broadcasters built around identifying whether or not a player is clutch. You had an opportunity, Duke did, to get a good shot or to get at least a good possession for the best player in the country, for Cooper Flagg, at the free throw line effectively off the handle, and that shot does not go in for Duke. Does it tell you anything about the young man, whether he makes or misses a shot in that situation?
Not really. I mean, I felt like he wanted it. He looked. I would have preferred he not fade away on that shot. But the crazy part about him, I think he was supposed to be in high school this year.
That's right.
And I love the way he plays. He looks, and he's looked all year. I saw him play live. I've seen him play now, in all these big games. He seems like he wants it. He is not shying away from any of it. So that didn't bother me. I mean, like I said, I'd like to see him get a little more, towards the bucket, not fading away on that one. But that's what he went to. He'll learn from that. He's still, to me, generational, and he'll learn from it. I mean, he'll be fine. It's a pleasure to watch. I actually love the kid Malawach, and you mentioned the foul trouble. I think really hurt them. Knipple's great. Yeah, like I said, they're the best team in the country. I still believe it, but I remember the year I graduated in '91. Duke was the best team in the country, and they lost to the Duke team in the semis. Kansas was the best team in the country the year Arizona won it in '97. We can go on and on, but that's why the tournament's awesome. And finally, chalk did not prevail, at least in that game to me.
Yeah, for those not familiar, Common Malawach, who has really come on and been a great player for Duke, especially in the second half of the season, no rebounds in this game. If you take Kelvin Sampson aside, before the game and say, hey, Malawach is going to have 0 boards in this game, he'd take that any day of the week. All right, great. That's what
that was bizarre, completely bizarre, because he's such a good player, such a good rim protector. He almost, to me, seems like a Dikembe Mutombo, but moves better. But did not show out in that game for sure.
So we're set up now, Houston versus Florida, Big 12 versus SEC. These are not basketball blue bloods. They are respected programs. Obviously, Florida's had previous national championship success under Billy Donovan, and the SEC was an absolute terror in the country this year. I mean, they were the best basketball conference in the country this year. Houston they're hanging on for us who are now in the Big 12 conference, all right? So how do you handicap the national championship matchup?
Honestly, seems like a pick 'em to me. Just as I said, I keep saying I'm being redundant. I think Duke's the best team, but I do believe the second and third best team are Florida and Houston. And to me, it's a total pick 'em. Clayton is probably going to be the best player in the game. I think he's better than any one player in that game, and so. At least in the NBA, you always go to the best player. That's a lot of times what's going to win the series. But in a one game deal, like with Houston, Cooper Flagg was the best player. They didn't win it. So, I think it's pick 'em, whoever shoots it well. I think the interesting thing to me, Florida's number 2 in the Ken Palm in offense. Houston's number 1 in defense. How does that matchup kind of play itself out? How do they guard Clayton? Clayton has been sensational. He's been probably the best player in the tournament. And I do think, too, the underrated thing about Houston, one thing Kelvin Sampson does is a little bit of a pro approach. You notice they have a slower tempo. Their assists are down. They find matchups, and they try to exploit the matchup, and they get them off a pick and roll. And they do actually do a lot of like 1-4 where they just go one-on-one. And I thought Uzan has been spectacular all year for Houston. He didn't play well Saturday. And I kind of think, at least for him, he's been really good. I think if he plays well, I think Houston's going to win.
What would a Big 12 champion in a year where, look, the Big 12 conference did not have a stellar year football-wise, did not have the year that I think some of us expected in basketball. So many of us talk about the Big 12 being the basketball conference, and obviously the SEC kind of claimed that at least for the 2024-2025 cycle. In a big picture world, does it mean anything for the Big 12 conference and for the basketball homeostasis in college hoops if the Big 12 team takes down a championship here?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's huge bragging rights. You'd have to probably give the Big 12 the conference of the year the last 7 or 8 before this year, and you'd give that to the SEC, of course, this year. But, I think before that, the Big 12 has consistently been the best. So I think in a year where the SEC has been the best, a Big 12 title against their best team says a lot. And so I think it is. I think it's a pretty cool thing, pretty cool for the bragging rights. Remember Houston, I think they've won 18 in a row. And Arizona made a nice little run. Of course, Arizona had that Duke team. I think Arizona has a chance to beat Duke if Duke just didn't make their shots. They just made a ton of shots. They made less shots. And that's what Houston does do. You can look around and say, well, Houston gets lucky because teams don't shoot as well. Well, they wear you down. They wear you down. It's almost like a really good football team. Their offensive line, by the end of the game, that team has worn you down so much. I've seen it happen. They remind me a little bit of the Chiefs, where they can win really close games because they're smart. They have a great coach. They wear you down, and then they just sort of seem to win it at the end a lot of times. Before you look up, they won by 7, by 8, by 9. And it's just kind of how they take teams apart.
All right, last thing before I let you go, kind of a big picture college basketball thing. I was ranting in the first segment of the show about, UConn just won a championship with a bunch of players who stuck around for most of their career, and Utah's maybe most exciting player tested the waters of the transfer portal. Now he's coming back. Pettiford from Auburn's going to test the waters of the draft, and he's going to stay eligible in case he wants to come back. Kansas has a couple guys doing this. I know it's the normal thing. I know it's the new model in college basketball, but what are your thoughts on it where everyone's dipping their toe in those portal waters at least just to see what it's like? Yeah, I mean, until we get until maybe there's a time where they sign contracts and become employees, until there's some sort of new change where things get really realigned, we're going to just keep seeing it. As I said, I live here in Tucson. Henry Vasar was a huge part of Arizona this year. He's in the portal, gone. KJ Lewis, one of their starters at the 3 spot, gone. I mean, it's just as part of the game, and because of the opportunity to make money, I don't blame them. And like I said, until we see something that changes in terms of possibly making employees. Now, that one piece that's going to change how the NIL works will be coming, and so that will change a little bit. But, I like it for the players. I think it's, at least on this current setup, it's fair for them. It is tough for a fan. It's tough because you love to see, the players. I mentioned like all the Utah players and those great teams, Andre Miller and, guys like that played 4 years, and you grow accustomed to watching them. You don't get a chance to watch them now. They're gone, one and gone. And maybe not to the NBA, just another team. And so that's tough. It's tough on the fan base. But fans are still watching. Fans are still going. We'll see what effect it has long term. I'd like to see it have a little more, like something where the players have these opportunities. But at the same time, people are still watching it, still love the tournament. Well, enjoy the national championship game, Matt. Can't tell you how much I appreciate you adding your insight to the show. Thank you, sir. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's going to be a fun one tonight. I think it's, like I said, pick 'em down to the wire. Should be really fun. That's Matt Muehlbach, college basketball insider, formerly with the Pac-12 networks, as you heard him allude to there. ESPN, Fox, everyone leans on Matt Muehlbach for his expertise. ESPN 792.1 FM, the Festival of Tees, powered by Utah Golf Association. We're giving away free rounds of golf from the best courses in the state and beyond. You can listen to the Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell. That's 10 to 11. The Sean O'Connell Show right here, 11 to 2. The Drive with Spence Checketts from 2 to 6. All for your chance to win. Festival of Tees, powered by the Utah Golf Association. All right, we'll take a quick one here. We'll come back. Alex Ovechkin broke Wayne Gretzky's record, but he waited an extra day to do it, and I'll tell you why. That is the coolest part of the whole story. Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. All right, we're going to give we're going to give Ovechkin a little bit of love. But before we get there, we're at Les Schwab Tires in Lehigh, 1200 East. Just here's what you do. You go east on Timpanogos Highway toward the mountains as if you're driving to Timpanogos itself. And then you'll see us on the right side of the road. On the south side of the road, ESPN 700 van is parked out front. I'm out front under the tent. Chris, the manager of this location here, Les Schwab Tires, is here with me. Chris, thanks for being on the show. How are you?
Not a problem. Great. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you having us out here today. All right. We've done a couple of these now, and I just want to make sure I'm not being trolled. I want to make sure people are telling me the truth. Number one warranty in America, best warranty, no extra cost. You don't have to buy the warranty on top of the warranty here. If I buy a set of 4 tires, all right, and I drive off and there's a bunch of construction happening, nail goes in my tire is flat. I just bought these things. You guys are actually going to replace that tire or plug that. You're going to fix that tire and I don't have to worry about it.
Exactly, yeah. So part of the warranty that you get when you buy our tires is lifetime rotates, rebalances, flat repairs. Not only that, if you do that unrepairable damage to the tires, like say you put a hole in the sidewall, we will replace it for 100% of its value. So we'll take care of you for the lifetime of the tire.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. No questions asked.
I keep trying to stump all the managers, and everyone has the same answer. So it's
That's
legit,
good.
people. It's the best warranty in America. Also, you've got some great instant savings on sets of tires right now, right?
Exactly. Yeah, we have a great sale going on. It goes till the middle of May, I believe, and we get you taken care of on a good set of tires. Our premium line tires are on a fantastic sale right now for the summer, and get ready for that summer travel.
Chris, what if I drive in here, and I don't know much about cars, right? And I'm like, I think these tires are okay, but I'm not sure. I drive in here, and there's enough tread on the tires, right? But they need to be rotated. I feel like a lot of tire shops, I'm going to drive in. If I don't know what I'm there for, they're going to be like, oh, you need new tires. Here's 4 new tires, and it's going to cost you $1,500. I feel like so many tire shops are just waiting for that uninformed consumer to come in. Les Schwab doesn't do that.
No, exactly. Yeah, we actually take that opportunity to educate our customers and let them know, hey, you still got plenty of life left on there. You just need a quick rotation, rebalance, and we'll get you fixed up on that and get you back on the road.
I'm telling you, they can take care of whatever it is you need. They've got the tires, they got the wheels, they got the accessories. We've got some emergency roadside kits to give away as well, courtesy of our friends at Les Schwab Tires. So come see us in Lehigh. And even if you can't come during my show today, which of course goes from 11 to 2, you need to roll in here at 3. Just tell Chris that OC sent you. He'll take good care of you. Right, Chris?
Yeah, I'll get everyone taken care of. And we got them Utes red today, so that way we'll support.
I love that. All right. Thank you, Chris, for being on. We'll talk to Chris a couple more times throughout the show today. All right. I know that we're just becoming a hockey market. We're just becoming a hockey town. So there's probably a lot of people listening who did not experience the bulk of Alexander Ovechkin's career. Maybe they didn't jump on the OV bandwagon early. That's totally fine. But the numbers speak for themselves. The longevity speaks for itself. Alexander Ovechkin surpasses Wayne Gretzky 895 career goals. Now, Gretzky's points record is 100% safe. He has more assists than he has goals, and he has more assists than anyone else in the world has goals. So even if Wayne Gretzky did not score a single goal, the great one would be the points leader in the NHL. That's how good he was for how long he was.
It'd be by a few hundred at least, too.
It's insane. It's like
he was so good at setting other people up
yes.
for scores, and you could argue even better at that than he was at actually scoring goals, which is insane.
It's one of those unsurpassable goals. It's just not going to happen, right? Like, no one's going to beat that. Now, I shouldn't say never, because Alexander Ovechkin had to play a long time in a Caps uniform in order to surpass the goals record, and there are a lot of people who didn't think anyone would pass the goals record for Wayne Gretzky, who, by the way, is as gracious as anyone has ever been about his record being broken, right? I mean, he's been in attendance. He's been rooting for this to happen. But the coolest thing that happened this weekend was Alexander Ovechkin scored a couple of goals against Chicago. Now, Chicago's not a good team this year, but he scored a couple of goals against Chicago and tied the record, got it to 894 against the Blackhawks. And he could have had 895. But Chicago pulled their goalie, as NHL teams often do in desperation scoring situations. And Alexander Ovechkin skated over to the bench, sat down in the middle of the bench, and just said, nope, not going to score the record-setting goal against an empty net. Not going to happen.
He responded to the post with the GIF. That's bait. You know the Tom Hardy.
Yes.
That's bait.
That's
I'm
bait.
not taking it. Not taking
Yes.
that bait. No, a goal's a goal's a goal, as John Madden might have said back in the day. But it all counts the same. But he had the right instinct there to say, no, the one that breaks the great one's record should not be an empty netter.
How many empty netters does Alexander Ovechkin have in his career? 65 empty net goals. So he's done 65. He's got 830 against the goalie, against the goaltender. And 65 of those came against an empty net. But you're absolutely right. He said, nope, I don't want to set the record against an empty net. That is the right instinct. That is very much the hockey guy thing to do. And look, everyone in the building was happy to see it. It's kind of a bummer for me that if there's any negative to this at all, and it's a very, very small one, because of the nature of this, a fan cannot catch the puck, so to speak, right? Like if it's a record-setting home run, the fan, it becomes part of the story. Whoever catches that home run ball and auctions that thing off or sells it back to the Caps or sells it back to whoever, like that's a part of the story. You can't do that with the puck. You can't do that with the stick. There's no debris off an NHL game, at least not most of the time, for the fans to really get in on. But aside from that, it was as storybook, as perfect of a moment as you could find. He by the way, he scored against the goalie he's never scored against to add to his record of most goalies scored against. 895 career goals for Alexander Ovechkin. He's going to finish out this year, obviously. He will finish with more than 895. And I don't think that he's going to retire either. So Alexander Ovechkin is going to keep going. And the great one still gets to be the great one, but now the goals record holder is Alexander Ovechkin. And I think it's particularly cool that we got to watch it in a year where the Salt Lake City market finally became a hockey market, became Puck Lake City. If we're calling it that still. I don't know. I don't know if we decided on that.
I mean, why not? Why not? Let's go for the Puck Lake City.
That's the hot lunch. Applause to Alexander Ovechkin for making sure that he did it the right way. We started the show with Alex Jensen talking about how he wants to finish things. He wants to do it the right way. Alexander Ovechkin wanted to do this one the right way. By the way, 25 minutes. They paused the game. 25 minutes for the ceremony to recognize the moment that everyone had witnessed. Hats, family down there, a special carpet that showed that it was goal 895. The NHL, Gary Bettman was there. Wayne Gretzky was there, obviously. They took a 25-minute interlude in a regular season game to acknowledge the record being set. That is intense. It's a long one. Can you imagine if you have James can't imagine this yet. You got you've hired a babysitter to go to this game, and the babysitter's like, you got to be home by 11. Like, I cannot stay 1 minute after 11 o'clock. You're like, oh, that's fine. I got plenty of time. It's going to be easy.
It'll be done by 10:30.
And then you're like, you know what? I'm going to park close. We're going to get home. No problem. And then they're just like, 25-minute pause. You're like, dang it. Now I got to leave early. Anyway, good for you, Alexander Ovechkin. Good for all of you who've been climbing the leaderboard in our $1 Million Bracket Challenge at ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. That's brought to you by Motorsports Land, Jersey Mike's, Intermountain Sportsman's Expo, Intermountain Bobcat, Ken Garff Nissan, Salt Lake City. Love those great sponsors for helping us out with our $1 Million Bracket Challenge. While nobody won the $1 million, you can still go and you can check and see if you're beating Porter, if you're beating me. You're probably beating James. And you're definitely beating Scott Mitchell at this point. Go
How
check
dare
out your
you.
bracket. ESPN700sports.com. All right. Take a quick one here. We'll come back. He is the host of Down and Dirty. He is the big lefty. He is a Utah football legend. He is Scott Mitchell. We'll talk all things spring football and the approaching NFL draft with Scott. Next on the Sean O'Connell Show. It's ESPN 700, 92.1 FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN Radio Network. Utah Spring football is here. ESPN 792.1 FM has all the coverage you need. Coverage brought to you by Jersey Mike's. Head to ESPN700sports.com for all the details. You'll find sound we have collected from practice and media availability there. You can always find the Down and Dirty, an hour of Scott Mitchell every day. You can find that in the on-demand section of ESPN700sports.com, the ESPN 700 app. You can also listen to the portion of the Sean O'Connell Show where Scott Mitchell joins us on Mondays. He does so now. Scott Mitchell, hello.
Hi, Sean. How you doing?
Doing great. I had a good time. I was driving down here to Les Schwab Tires today. I'm on remote in Lehigh, 1200 East, just off of the Timpanogos Highway. Come down and see me if you're in need of tires, and Les Schwab will hook you up. If you need an emergency roadside kit, if you need a stadium bag, we got some giveaways there. But I was listening to your show, Scott, on the way down, and I thought, I love how much NFL you're talking. I love how much you're into, the league that only you played in for such a long time. Nobody else in the market had your level of success at the NFL level. And, you were talking about, when I was listening on the way down, you were talking about the Arch Manning thing and the Shedeur Sanders thing and the nepotism sort of thing, and the difference between being a Manning and playing quarterback and being a Sanders and playing quarterback when your dad was not a QB. I thought that was a really fascinating discussion. I guess I don't even have a question here. I just thought that was really good stuff on Down and Dirty.
Oh, I appreciate that. And so to me, I love watching the pro days with the quarterbacks, and it tells me a lot. Like, I remember watching Zach Wilson when he was at BYU, and Zach only played really maybe one full season, and it was the COVID, and they were just trying to find any warm body to play them season, so they were just hodgepodging a schedule together, and I think they were one of the few teams in the country that actually played a full schedule, and he had a really good year, and so it's really kind of hard to tell how good he is, and I was seeing things in his pro day that I was like, this guy, the routine, he should complete the ball 100% of the time. The ball should not be on the ground, and the location of the throws should just be on point. And I just saw a lot of those easy throws. They're a little behind a guy, a little ahead of a guy, and when you're controlling the whole dynamic of it, it should be so much better. And I just said, that concerns me. And it turned out to be something that was concerning, because that was kind of the knock on Zach Wilson is he's just a little bit too casual on those throws you got to make 100% of the time. And so you can really glean a lot from it. But you look at the Mannings, and so here's Zach Wilson. He's like, man, I'm going pro. I've been here for, and it's like he would have been so much better off if he would have stayed at BYU and just got reps that weren't the pressure. He got reps, right? His reps were with the New York Jets, a terrible organization in a meat grinder of a media market, as opposed to, the beautiful confines of Happy Valley and BYU, where all the media is going to be nice to you, and you're going to get these wonderful, beautiful reps, and people aren't going to just, crucify you if you throw an interception, and you're going to get so much better, because Cam Ward, like, I saw him when he came out of Incarnate Word, and I was like, this guy's no way in the world is this guy the first pick in the draft. And you saw the refinement over time. And then you have the Mannings who go, we understand this process. We've lived it all the way for multiple generations, and we've had massive success in the NFL because we understand how and what goes into the development of a player. Peyton Manning, even though he was, went to college all his time, he starts and he throws, a league, I think it's still a record interceptions his rookie year. As good as he also sucked, but he was also really prepared to be there for that situation. And it just takes time, and you gotta really let it, it's like making beef bourguignon. You got to let the meat simmer for a long time for it to really be good. And it's the same thing with playing quarterback.
Well, you and I must both be hungry today, because I was making crock pot versus quick snack references earlier today. So maybe both of us are doing radio with our stomachs today. Although
Sean, I'm perpetually hungry. I'm hungry in my sleep.
Yeah, that makes I feel seen when you say something like that, Scott. I can relate. All right, so Utah spring football is underway, and every report we're hearing is that things are positive. Everything that we're seeing so far is that things are positive. For folks who don't know, our guy Scott Mitchell has a certain level of status as one of the greats who played there, to where like the media has rules, right? The media has rules where you can watch your 20 minutes, or whatever. And Scott Mitchell likes to play by some rules, but not all rules. So Scott Mitchell's getting to see a little bit more practice than your average media member is getting to see. So I lead on you, Scott. What have you seen that you like? What have you seen that you still maybe have questions about from Utah spring football?
Well, it's kind of fun to kind of unpack the team, and especially knowing that you get to call the games, and so a lot of the players. You understand certain like where they've been deficient. And one thing that I really like is I like the defense, right? And the secondary, Rabbit Evans looks like he's going to be a player. Jonah Hall's made the transition from safety to linebacker, and Lander Barton actually looks really he looks healthy. He looks lean. It looks like he's primed to play very well this year. It's really fun. I got to hang out with his dad on Saturday and his brother Jackson, and Cody was there, but so the whole Barton family, they're a lot of fun. In fact, Jackson's going to be on the Down and Dirty on Wednesday, so have a fun conversation with him. But I really liked it. I like the secondary a lot. Smith Snowden, Scooby Davis has looked really good. Teo, the other corner, you look over there, and there's Saunders, there's Cotton, there's some other guys, and I don't know who's going to show up, but all I know is they look like dudes, right? And so I like teams that have dudes, and those guys look like they can play. On the other side of the ball, I think it's interesting. The biggest thing that stood out to me is there's so many hybrid players with the offense, and so with a hybrid player, it's not like you go, okay, we've got a quarterback who can just be a quarterback. We have a quarterback that's also a really good runner. And he's a good runner in the sense that not like Cam Rising ran. Like he knows how to protect himself when he runs. Like he's a running quarterback legitimately. So you don't have the same concern for injury. So you're going to get production with him throwing, but you're also going to get production with him running as well. And you have a guy like Landon King, who I really like, and he's kind of that hybrid. He's kind of a wide receiver. He's kind of a tight end. You can use him in multiple, places. You have Andrews, who was a linebacker. He was a tight end. He's been an end. He's been a linebacker. He's been a lot of things, and now he's kind of a running back, fullback, utility guy, and so he's got some diverse skill sets so you have these hybrid guys, and why I'm bringing this up is you can create offense, you can create production in kind of unconventional ways, and there's a lot of fun parts that I think what's really fun about Jason Beck is he's like, I don't care what I have, I just need to figure out what it is, and once I figure out what it is, now how do I utilize it? And I think he's spent a lot of time making those evaluations and developing guys in different ways so that they can do it. Nate Johnson came back. Nate Johnson looks completely different when he was a quarterback here at Utah, and so he's another one of those hybrid types of players. Offensive line looks really solid, and they're playing together, and there's a lot of cohesion there, and that's kind of that foundational thing that you really need to have, and so kind of how you mix all these parts together. And then, of course, there's going to be a bigger emphasis on running the football. And Parker, the running back from Washington State, looks really good. And there's some other guys that because you always need more than one. And so they got, 2 or 3 guys, very different styles. Bray, who's a freshman, is more of an outside fast guy, different type of running back, but looks like he has some promise. So my opinion the defense is going to be what it was a year ago. It's going to be one of the top defenses in the conference, and they were really good. I mean, it's one of the overshadowed things from last year is this defense played pretty well. And then what you have is you just need an offense. If you can just find 10, and if you're really lucky, 14 more points a game, you're going to win. You're going to win pretty much all of your football games next year. And there's a lot of energy, and there's a lot of excitement, and there's a lot of I think internal expectation and determination to do well. And so to me, it's all about how do you take all those hybrid pieces on offense and create enough offense to get 10 or 14 more points a game. And I think this football team will be in good shape.
I'm knocking on wood as I ask Scott Mitchell this question because I don't want to jinx anything. I don't know if we've gone into a year in recent memory where the offensive line seems to be quite so promising and quite so figured out that you just made the point. Did you ever get a chance to play behind a great offensive line, Scott? Forgive me for not knowing every, the entire Rolodex of all the offensive linemen you had, but I do remember there was a certain narrative that, Barry Sanders was twice the back as his predecessors and competitors because he never had the offensive line that like Emmitt Smith had, for example. Did you ever get a chance to play behind a great offensive line?
Well, yes and no, but the no might not be for what you expect. So, like with the Miami Dolphins, when you have Dan Marino as the quarterback, like they will cut you and they might kill you if you let anyone touch Dan Marino. For sure, you're going to get fired. So that offensive line, and of course, it was really good. I mean, we had Richmond Webb and Keith Sims on the left side, and we had some really good, Jeff Dellenbach was a guy who played a long time in the NFL. Jeff Ulenake was really good. Roy Foster. I mean, there's some really good guys that played on that offensive line, but they understood who they were, and they were really good at it, and they had to be. But Dan Marino also helped, because you got the ball out quick, so you weren't having to hold guys. I was talking to Mark Wilson, who played for the Raiders, and Mark goes, we had to hold the ball a long, long time, and it put a lot of pressure on those offensive linemen. So I'm not sure how great those lines were in Miami, but they were really good because of the way we played and who they had to block for, and they really were great at pass protection. When I was in Detroit, I don't know how good the lines were. I mean, we had some really good. Zephyros Moss was an amazing tackle. I mean, he went up against Reggie White, and Reggie White never sacked me. And Zephyros was just big, stout, strong guy that Reggie just couldn't bully, and so you have the right kind of guy who works for a guy like Reggie. Lomas Brown was, Pro Bowler, and Kevin Glover was just a tremendous center. Mike Compton is a guy that, played for the Patriots and won a Super Bowl there. Those guys were all there. And the problem with that is, each running play is designed to go somewhere. And so, like, Emmitt Smith kind of followed the plan and followed the pass.
Yeah,
Barry Sanders had made his own pass. So a guy may be blocking his guy, and then Barry Sanders runs the other way, and then the guy thinks, oh, wait, I'm screwing up. But, so you just never knew, and it made it challenging. And we weren't really always sure of who we were. So we might be good at run blocking, but weren't really good in pass protection. And so then it was like, and I don't know, how good or how bad. But then Baltimore, Jonathan Ogden,
well, there you go,
is as good as there ever was. Like it's just, I don't know that, I think there were years Jonathan Ogden never gave up a sack, like in a year, like in multiple years when he played. And the biggest human being that you've ever met, if you think of Fat Albert, on the Cosby cartoon, but athletic. He's in shape. He's this massive human being, but he's in just unbelievable shape. And watching him play golf, watching him play basketball. I mean, the guy was he was incredible, an incredible athlete. And then Willie Davis, I played with in Cincinnati, was another great runner. And we had Corey Dillon, and this offensive line when I was in Cincinnati was as good as anyone really, I think, in the NFL. I mean, these guys were really good. So, I actually played with some pretty decent lines. sometimes it was harder just because of like Barry Sanders, kind of made it hard, but he was amazing. But yeah, I didn't have where I was like, man, this line is terrible.
I just looked it up, by the way, because you were talking about Jonathan Ogden, 11-time Pro Bowler. How many sacks do you think he allowed in his entire career?
I know it wasn't very many.
9 is the total.
I was going to say 8. Yeah.
9 total
yeah.
sacks in a decade plus in the NFL. He gave up less than a sack a year. So, yeah, that counts. And the reason I asked you that.
Think of like Andre the Giant.
Yes.
Like think of just trying to run into that, like you're a defensive end, and you're just not going to go around it. You're not going to overpower it. You're not going to out athlete it. I mean, if there's a person, Anthony Munoz is kind of the same thing. I don't know that there's a better offensive tackle ever to play in the NFL than Jonathan Ogden.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of people who would share that opinion. The reason I asked you that question, this will be the last thing before I let you go, was because, when you have an offensive line or even like a player, like in the case of Jonathan Ogden, I mean, Spencer Fano is being talked about. I saw this thread on Twitter the other day, like, aside from the quarterbacks who are going to be discussed as Heisman Trophy winners, who is the best player, the best overall player in college football? I saw Spencer Fano's name come up from like 5 different writers. And I was like, whoa, that's a lot to live up to. I don't think he's far off, but when you have that, right, and Lomu's not far behind him, and you got experienced guys like Kump has been great, and Mokafisi, and you got all these. Tongiai is a monster. Like, he's 340 pounds, if I'm not mistaken. When you have that as a thing, you're a quarterback or you're a running back or you're one of these Swiss Army knife players for Utah football, or you're the coordinator for that matter, and you're just like, man, I really got to figure out what to do with all these pieces, but I know I've got that. What does that do for an offensive player or an offensive coach if this offensive line can be what we think it is?
Well, if you're Devin Dampier, you're like, thank you. But if you're also the offensive line and they have, I think this running game is going to be really good. And I think with the combination of the running backs and the quarterback and the ability to play action, the biggest challenge for Utah has been no one respected them. I mean, everyone just said, you're going to have to, you're going to have to throw the ball. We're going to put 8 men in the box. And I think that ability with the RPO and the ability to chase people out of being there, that's certainly going to be the biggest part. It's kind of like the two are going to go hand in hand, where you have the personnel to put a defense on the defensive, but you also have the personnel where you can do a lot of things, and this offense will be dynamic and the ability to play action, the ability to get out of the pocket, the ability for the quarterback to improvise is just going to create offense that they just haven't been able to generate when Cam Rising hasn't been in there. So on top of it, too, the last thing is you can see these guys have played together for a while, and having that cohesiveness, it just makes you so much better. They just play more confident. They're gonna be able to pick up a lot of things, handle a lot of situations. Very mature, very talented offensive line will be a good building block for an offense that should be fairly explosive.
Well, we'll be watching the rest of spring. You'll hear Scott Mitchell on the Down and Dirty. You'll hear him over on our sister station, brother station, in what was that, about half an hour from now. But, of course, you'll still be listening to the Sean O'Connell Show. So I don't know how you manage those conflicts in your life. I'll leave that up to you. Scott, I always appreciate your time. Thanks for joining me.
You got it. Thanks, Sean.
Great stuff from Scott Mitchell. Really a huge asset here at ESPN 700 to have a guy with all those years of NFL experience, having played with all those greats or opposite all those greats. All right, one of the best in the business, one of our favorite people in sports media, Mike Yam with the NFL Network. The NFL draft is coming. We're just a couple of weeks away. The mock drafts are out. Even the the full 7-round mock drafts are out. We'll see what Mike Yam thinks about this draft evaluation process and the guys that we should be having the closest eye on. Mike Yam in 3 minutes. We're coming at you live from Les Schwab Tires in Lehigh on the Sean O'Connell Show. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
Levitt operates out of the shotgun. Scatterboot left. He'll take the pass, a snap, and backpedal. He looks, he's hit as he throws, and the ball it's intercepted by Utah. Who came up with it? One of the big guys up front came up with it, it looks like. It's Junior Tafuna.
First down, Utah.
Fano applied the pressure, and Tafuna comes up with the interception, and Utah's forced the early turnover. They'll get it back.
Little highlight from Utah versus Arizona State, courtesy of the Utah Sports Radio Network. Bill Riley on the call. Junior Tafuna is expected to hear his name called in the upcoming NFL draft. Probably like a late day 2, early day 3 guy, maybe. We'll see how it plays out. He did improve his stock through the Senior Bowl practices and pro day. So Junior Tafuna, one of the Utes that are going to, I think, account well for himself at the next level. Mike Yam is now, he was with the Pac-12 for so long, and he does a little ACC work, but you're going to see most of Mike Yam on the NFL Network, which is absolutely fantastic. It is the biggest thing in sports, and he is the biggest thing in sports. And Mike Yam's kind enough to join us. Yammer, what's up?
Boy, talk about overselling for your audience, man. Now I feel the pressure to really deliver here.
Yes, that's why I do that, to make you just sweat it out and really give us your best, Yam. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, man. This is sort of like one of my favorite times of the year. I know you are a football junkie yourself, so and not to mention you obviously cover a ton of college football. So the convergence of and this intersection of the NFL and college football coming together in less than a month here for the NFL draft is certainly awesome. So really looking forward to a couple weeks from now.
So as we look toward draft time and teams are kind of like figuring out what their rosters are going to look like, we're getting a couple of retirement announcements that I guess maybe I wasn't expecting in the NFL. Guys in their early 30s. You got the Dolphins. I know that 33 is now an advanced age in a physical sport, but Taron Armstead, at 33 years of age, has decided to retire. Julio Jones is officially retiring. These are young men in the real world. These guys are veterans in the sport of football, but certainly not long in the tooth by any stretch of the imagination. The contracts are a big influence here because guys make more money quickly now, so they don't have to stick around until they're 40 years old to try to provide generational wealth for their families. But I wanted to get your thoughts on a couple of kind of like sneaky big retirements that are happening for teams that obviously want good things to happen for themselves this year.
You know, Sean, I think one of the last points that you just made about those contracts is really significant. So I would point to, let's just talk Teron Armstead. Dude made $116 million in a 12-year NFL career. The generational wealth already now exists for him and his family, which is amazing. And the abuse that comes from playing every single Sunday is now officially in the rearview mirror. And to me, I think that's a huge factor here. We saw this a few years ago, and I guess it's more than just a few years at this point when Andrew Luck decided to step away. Sean, you know this. A, because of your football background. B, because of your background also as a fighter. Like, there is this physical demanding toll, this sacrifice for your body that's really tough. I had this conversation with someone in our locker room at NFL Network. God, maybe it was Brian Baldinger who had the conversation with, and if it wasn't Baldy, it was someone else. But the point remains the same. You know, we were kind of laughing about, NBA players and, why some of these guys don't get married until like later in their careers or even post-career. And if it was Baldy or someone else sort of smiled and said, these NFL guys get married early, maybe some of them in college, some of them right after college. And I said, well, why do you think that is? And he goes, because it's really hard to walk around on Monday. It's really tough to get out of bed on Tuesday. And these guys sort of need someone to help take care of them physically. And I think that piece of it, that's from a fan's perspective, Sean, and you know this, I think we see what that physical demand is, but unless you're truly living it, I don't think any of us can really understand what these guys go through. And I think that's a big reason why you're seeing some of these players saying, you know what, like, I've made my money, I have my legacy as a player, it's time for the next phase of my life.
I'm actually glad to see it because, well, you brought up the fact that I'm a fighter, which I always like to remind people of. In combat sports, and football effectively is a combat sport because of how physical it is and how serious the impacts are, and I know for sure that it's just as damaging for your brain to play football as it is to get punched in the head because you're talking about little mini car crashes, as we've talked about many, many times. But the when you fall off that cliff, when the injuries start to pile up or the CTE starts to become a problem, in a lot of cases, at least on the combat side, it doesn't happen like gradually. It's not like this little drip and the bucket is filling up at that same exact pace. It's like when it starts to go, it really starts to go. And to see guys walk away before they lose a step and expose themselves to more like life-altering injury or life-altering brain damage, to see them walk away when they have their wits about them, when the kids are starting to come into the picture and they can look and say, all right, well, now there's another purpose for me that is greater than even that locker room camaraderie. It's kind of cool to see, totally. and I guess there's not even a question in it, but it's like it's good that there's recognition now, and I don't know that there always was, that when the cost starts to pile up, it piles up quickly. It's not a gradual process.
No, it's not. And I take it a step further because I think you're sort of touching on something that's really significant. And this idea of some guys looking at their family, for example, and going, you know what, like this is what I sacrificed the first, 25 years or so dedicating myself to sports so that now I can kind of do what I want. I think for other guys, because there's the exact opposite. It's the dude that's holding on for a really long period of time, despite the fact that maybe that first step or that first step and a half isn't what it used to be a few years ago. But I think that person is really interesting too, because this is what they know. I've had these conversations with guys as they retire over time, and I'm always fascinated by the ones who are prepared for post-athletic career life. And that's not always the case. Like I was talking to a guy that we both know really well, in Don McClain, who used to call games for Pac-12 Network and has been working for Fox and Big Ten this year, and he does some stuff with the Clippers. We were just catching up the other day, and he had told me about one of his neighbors who lives down the street. This is a dude who used to be a Major League Baseball pitcher who made $100 million, right? Like well-known guy. And Don said, I asked him, I'm like, hey, what are you doing? Walking the dog and that sort of thing. And his response was like, oh, it's busy. I play golf a couple days a week. And, the other day I'm taking the kids to school and that sort of thing. And he seems really content with it. And Don sort of joked, he's like, I'd go out of my mind if that's all the only thing that I was doing. But Don had a plan of like what he wanted to do post-career. And I think for some of these guys, it's sort of like fighting off the reality of the unknown that comes after they're done playing.
That's fair. And I think that's also why there's so many dang people with podcasts now, Yam. Every one of these guys is just like, well, I have my post-playing career. I have a podcast. And some of them are awesome and some of them are not so awesome. But everyone's got one now.
Yeah. I had one for a little bit too. And I guess I still do. I'm working with Lamar Hurd on one for the Pac-12. So I guess I can throw myself into the mix on that one as well.
Well, you don't have to. This is your career. It's not your post-playing career. It's your career.
That's a good point.
Mike Yam, my guest
That's
here
a
on the Sean O'Connell Show. All right, so the upcoming draft is approaching, and we've talked about kind of the narrative and the sort of usual suspects. The quarterback conversation has been Cam Ward, and all of a sudden now, hey, where does Shedeur Sanders fit? Is again starting to be another topic of conversation. Does this flux, does it happen because of fatigue in conversation? Does it happen because of boredom? Or is there actual new information, like out of a pro day at Colorado where he showed out and did like, was just spinning the ball like crazy? Is there actual new information with all the film available, with everything we know, especially about someone as high profile as Shedeur Sanders? Are we learning something new this close to the draft that will change his draft position?
No, I don't buy it. I think, and you're sort of alluding to it, and maybe you and I are on the same side of things. You get all these starts in college, right? And Shedeur's had plenty of them. We've seen Cam Ward, multiple stops in his career. We know what these guys are when you watch the game tape. You've had an opportunity to talk to them at the combine. You've done your research. If you think you're in on a quarterback and have a need, you've talked to the coaching staff, the training staff, the people that are on those campuses. You go all the way back, maybe even to their high school days, and sort of do your research. To me, these pro days are confirmation days. Hey, do all of the things that you've seen, do they line up? Because here's the other thing, Sean, that I would say. Shedeur Sanders throwing against air at a pro day or throwing to a wide receiver not in pads that he's played with, and it looks like a borderline 7-on-7 drill. Like, what are you really gaining from some of that stuff? Sometimes there's a couple of those wow moments, and we see that at the combine where a guy's got an absolute cannon. A couple of years ago, I remember watching Will Levis sort of like make one of these spectacular throws where he's rolling out to the opposite direction and sort of like just heaving it down the field. But, like, what does that really do for you in terms of your evaluation? If a guy can get it done as a player with the pads on in real game situations, to me, that's the most meaningful thing. These pro days, I look at them as completely validation days.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, there have been, especially the COVID year, there was a lot of, like, evaluation based on those pro days, and I don't think it worked out necessarily for the teams that over-indexed on what they saw throwing against air to prove your point. All right, let me ask you this. This is the Pac-12, who you're still doing some work with. They're still waiting to add another football school. Am I correct?
Yes, you are correct.
Okay.
There's some rumblings about that. Yes.
Yeah. So I went and filmed some PFL stuff at the Pac-12 studios. As you're aware,
I'm aware because I got some messages from you about that and some producers there who made it abundantly clear they'd rather work with you than work with me. So yes, no, I'm aware that you were sitting on the desk.
Yes, I had to. I paid them all to say things like that. I was like, you got to troll Yam for me, but there were some rumblings there, and now Sacramento State is potentially they've applied for membership to FBS football from FCS football, which is wild because when I transferred to Weber State because I wasn't good enough to play at Utah, we were in the same conference as Sacramento State, and it was not like the Troy Taylor Sacramento State. It was Sacramento State who stunk out loud. And now they're like a step away from being a Pac-12 team. Is this what's going to happen?
Oh, I go back and forth in my head on this one, Sean, and I think you're touching on it a little bit, which is this idea of accumulating teams versus finding real strategic value from a football perspective. Now, Sac State could get there, and I'm not saying that they're not. All I'm saying is, there's a little bit of like trying to find a major market because of television rights and the Bay Area. And look, that's further north than San Francisco. Obviously, it's not the same, but I think from a regional perspective, when you talk about subs, it can cross that. It's kind of like Rutgers in the Big Ten years ago when they did that deal. Those cable providers were able to charge for the New York City market because of the proximity of Rutgers. And I'm a Jersey guy. It's not that close, but Rutgers' proximity to New York City, right? So I think there's a little bit of that at play. But, candidly, Sean, I think it's just land grabs. I think the state of college football right now has become, how do we make sure that we have ample amount of teams covering the most amount of ground so that when there is some sort of leverage play and there's another round of realignment, we're in a pretty good spot. And I think there's what's that show, Highlander, like there can only be one. I think that there's a little bit of that going on here where there's not going to be just one, but look, I think the day and age of having Power 5, football, for example, now it's clearly Power 4. I think if you advance this thing 4, 5, 6 years or within the next decade, I still look at this as sort of an NFL model with 2 super conferences and the idea of like the old Pac-12 being back together, because I think the regional aspect of these games is meaningful, and I think that aspect alone is the reason why Sac State is in this conversation.
As long as we're talking about Sac State, and I just said Troy Taylor's name. Troy Taylor, Andrew Luck came in, GM at Stanford, didn't like some of the stories being told out of the football program, and he's made a change. They've got an interim head coach, and not to get granular on Troy Taylor or Frank Reich or anything else. Stanford football, Mike Yam, was not so long ago a perennial top 10 team, and while producing elite level graduates, captains of industry, big time NFL talents. And they've fallen so far from that standard, partially because of the world we live in right now with the transfer portal and whatnot. But also, it's Stanford. There's enough money floating around in that alumni base that you'd think they'd be able to put together a nice little NIL fund. What is the future of Stanford football?
I wish I had a solid, concrete answer, but this looks like another level of uncertainty for a significant period of time. And I think it's really unsettling because you look at what Harbaugh was able to accomplish, you look at what David Shaw was able to accomplish, and you and I were in the weeds when Shaw had this thing rolling covering this conference. And now all of a sudden it has taken such a massive step back. And I think having a guy like Andrew Luck sort of be involved in this process is definitely helpful. I think that's why you're looking at a guy like Frank Reich in the fold here, at least for the upcoming season. I don't love the fit in the ACC for Stanford and for Cal. I think the cross-country aspect of this is mind-numbing and perplexing. I remember talking to Coach Taylor when at ACC Media Day in Charlotte a year ago and having this conversation, talking to the other coaches about having to go to the West Coast, there's not a lot that really made sense geographically about this move. And I think from a Stanford perspective, you got to decide, are we all in or are we kind of half in? And I think they had the luxury in the old model of college football to be able to figure out how to compete at a really high level. In the new era of college football, where NIL is really impactful and meaningful, where television dollars are really driving revenue and the exposure around the game, I think they need to think a little differently than they have. And I'll give you an example. David Shaw would tell me this, hey, there's not, for Stanford, like when they were recruiting, there was only a handful of guys that really fit the profile in the country of being a Stanford football player. So he said for as much as the challenges were difficult to navigate in terms of the administration, the academics, all of those types of things, he's like, it actually simplified the process. Instead of having to recruit the top, let's call it 500 guys across the country, we could just focus our attention on maybe the top, 100 guys that really could fit this profile for us. And I think they need to understand that the dollars and cents now are really meaningful and players are expecting cash in hand.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just the affinity for the old Pac-12 days. And there certainly was a recruiting pipeline established from our home state here in Utah to Stanford that is it's still there. There's a couple of guys on the roster, but man, it's so weird to see Stanford not being more of a power. All right, we got to let you go, Yam. You're the best. I love that we could talk anything in the football world, and I cannot let you go without endorsing Fried Rice and Marinara. It is a wonderful children's book. It is available on Amazon and other places. And I sent Mike Yam proof of the influence this book has in my house. I don't put my children on social media because there's too many weirdos out there. But my oldest daughter, we were reading Fried Rice and Marinara, and she was like, I'm gonna have fried rice and marinara for my next birthday. And I was like, okay, that's amazing. It kind of misses the point. Like, young Mike Yam chose fried rice and marinara because he's, a multicultural kid, and like, so she would have to choose between like white cuisine and even whiter cuisine, but like, I don't know, like Irish and Swiss cuisine. I don't even know what those are. But in any case, it's a wonderful book, and I will mention it every time we talk because it has a place in my my family's like lore now. So thanks for writing it.
No, you're the best. By the way, the second one is coming out in November. I will make sure that it gets fast-tracked off the printing press directly into the O'Connell household. So, and there's a football team to it. So
are we talking fried rice and marinara too? Let's go, baby!
It's trust me. I actually am so geeked up about it, and I was super excited about fried rice and marinara. Don't get me wrong. Like these are like two of the biggest passion projects I've ever executed on in my entire life. But this one is more specific to the broadcast and the football side. That's all I'll say for now, but I'll make sure when we get closer. Obviously, I'll be on with you anytime that you ask. But as we get a little bit closer, man, I can't wait to give you some of the details on that.
All right. Well, we're going to have an off-air conversation about that, too.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
We got to. We have to. And by the way, I called you, like, legitimately, give me a call back, man. I would love to catch up with you on just sort of life stuff.
Yes, I'm a bad friend, and I have not called you back yet, but I promise I will remedy that. Mike Yam, you're the best. Thanks for your time, as always.
I appreciate you, dude. We'll talk soon.
You can find him all over the place. You can find him on Pac-12 Podcast. You can find him on ACC Network. You can find him on the CW doing ACC work. You can find him on the NFL Network, most importantly, as the upcoming draft is really just right around the corner. We'll get into some more of that discussion as we continue. But I'm glad I had Mike Yam, glad James Peterson arranged that, because there's a bunch of like 30 to 33-year-old dudes calling it quits in the NFL. Calling it quits is the wrong. They're retiring because they can. It's really fascinating. All right, Sean O'Connell Show continues. We're at Les Schwab Tires here in Lehigh. Stop by, say hi. I have given away a couple of stadium bags. So far, nobody has claimed the emergency roadside kit. I think it's because it's such a significant gift. People think you got to like do something special for it. You don't. Just come say hi, and I'll give you a roadside kit. It's got jumper cables in it. It's got like a cutting tool for your seatbelt. It's got a tire repair kit. Let's go. Come see me, people. Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. In 5 minutes from now, Alex Jensen, Utah head basketball coach, recently hired, the legend returning to Salt Lake City. He will do his first interview with any of the local media right here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Looking forward to that conversation with Alex Jensen as we are here at Les Schwab Tires, the Lehigh location just off the Timpanogos Highway, 1200 East. Is that we're at 1200 East, is that right, Chris? Chris is the manager here at Les Schwab Tires in Lehigh. He hooked us up with some roadside kits, by the way.
Yeah.
We figured it out. I was like, why isn't anyone grabbing these? They're grabbing the stadium bags. It's because these are like fancy.
Okay.
It's such a good gift to give away that people think they got to do something special for it. I'm trying now to make sure everyone knows. All you got to do is show up. I will give you an emergency roadside kit.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we won't make you roll tires or anything. So.
Well, now that that's an option, I might make you roll some tires. All right, but Chris won't. Chris is the one who provided them, so he ultimately gets to decide. All right, let's talk about the instant savings on tires right now. What do you have?
So right now we have a lot of our premium line tires are on a great sale. It's not a mail-in rebate or anything like that. It's instant, so it happens right at the time of purchase. You get that instant money back for your purchase, and it includes all the warranties as well. So there's no gimmicks, no catches or anything like that. So it's all included.
So come in, grab a new set of tires, and I've been watching the traffic kind of come through today. You guys you can outfit any vehicle.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the biggest trucks, the sleek sports cars. We've seen those coming in. We all. It seems like in Utah drive SUVs. You're equipped to take care of those. I saw the Teslas coming in earlier. You have something for everybody.
Yeah, we get everything taken care of. Your trailers, anything like that, we'll get you squared up and get you taken care of.
And of course, when you purchase tires at Les Schwab, they are covered by the #1 warranty in America.
Yeah. Our America's best warranty is included with every tire that you purchase here at Les Schwab.
Do I need to make an appointment if I'm trying to get tires today or tomorrow or anytime? Is it better to make an appointment, or can you just walk in?
Whatever works best for you. We'll accommodate you anyway. If you want to set up an appointment, we can definitely do that for you. Or you could just come on down anytime, and we'll get you taken care of as well. So.
What else? Okay, I know that you guys specialize in tires, but if my car's knocking and jerking, it doesn't sound great. Can I bring it into Les Schwab, see what's going on?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, so we offer free inspections on that kind of stuff. So if you have a clunky noise or something along those lines, you just bring it in and we'll check it out for you and let you know what we think it is and go from there.
The pros at Les Schwab get the job done right the first time. Come in now, take advantage of the great offers, premium tire discounts, and the great warranty. And of course, we got some giveaways, but you got to come down while I'm doing the show, which means you have roughly an hour left if you want an emergency roadside kit at the Lehigh location, just off 1200 East and the Timpanogos Highway. As you head east towards the mountains, we're on the south side of the road. Chris, thanks for having us.
Appreciate it.
All right. Without any further ado, we'll take a quick one here. We'll come back with Alex Jensen, head coach for Utah men's basketball. Lots to discuss with him. That's in 3 minutes on the Sean O'Connell Show. Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Sean O'Connell Show continues here on a Monday, and we're lucky enough to be joined by the new head coach of your Runnin' Utes. A legend as a player, and we hope even more of a legend as a coach, Alex Jensen on the Sean O'Connell Show. Alex, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing good, Sean. How are you doing?
You know what? Great. We're very, very excited to pick your brain a little bit, to talk to you today. It's funny because so many of us in the market feel like we know you, having watched you as a player and obviously watched your career with great interest and your time with the Utah Jazz and all that stuff. And now you're the head man at your alma mater, at a place where you're so attached reputationally, if that's even a real word. What is it like for you to wake up and to know that, hey, man, I'm the head coach of my alma mater?
You know what? It's funny because it's almost surreal in a lot of ways, but I definitely feel very lucky to be able to, not many people have that opportunity to coach their alma mater, but yeah, it's kind of, I never necessarily imagined it happening, but no, I feel like, even though it's been quite a long time since I've played, I think, like every place, there's a way to, you're able to win and be successful. And I was a part of it as a player. So I'm excited. It is kind of full circle for sure.
Well, I know basketball and college basketball are definitely different now than when you were a player. How different is college basketball now than the last time you were in it as an assistant coach at St. Louis?
Obviously, first and foremost, it's the money and the NIL money, which is really, naturally it's changed it. It's made it, more transactional. And, I kind of am approaching it, kind of like one of the things I've learned in the NBA. Because, you have the salaries and stuff, and that's a big reason I really felt I needed to hire a GM, which I did in Wes Wilcox. Somebody who had who's dealt with salaries and building a roster from not the coaching side of it, but from like front office side of it. So it's changed a lot, and I think the interesting thing is I think it'll continue to evolve and change. I think there's going to be, as they iron out some of the details with the in particular lawsuits I don't know a lot about, but I think it will continue to evolve.
How's it going to work with you and your general manager? Are you going to identify talent, you and the rest of your staff going to identify talent and say, hey, we need that guy, do what you have to do, with the money, and let's get him here? Is he going to bring players to you? How do you envision that working as this fleshes itself out?
I think it'll be a combination. I think it'll be, and that's the great thing about a front office person is, he comes from a different angle than say necessarily a coach would. And I just think it's important to have, people in that role that are doing that have done it, and that they're doing that all year long. Because the pool in college, it's you got high school, you got other colleges now, the portal, and then I think Europe's only going to get bigger. So there's a lot to filter out, but like somebody that's dedicated to that's done it, and that they do that all year, I just imagine the coaches will definitely have input on it. I will, but I think it just filter out and make the process a lot smoother and easier, if that makes sense. Working, hand in hand.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. So the NBA model, right? And I think it's the right thing to do. Not that you need my endorsement, but to kind of bring that into a college basketball program now, because the finances are so important. But the NBA model is, I think, a lot easier for fans and idiots in the media like me to understand, because you know what the salary cap is, you know what the luxury tax aprons are, you know that the field is relatively level, and in college basketball, and specifically with the Runnin' Utes, what is it like in the early goings here? Do you know how much NIL support your program is going to have? Obviously, the settlement is going to happen, and I'm sure you had conversations about how much of that money is going to be available to basketball, et cetera. So when you and Wilcox are having these conversations about how to build this program, do you know what the salary cap is, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, I will say this: with each passing day, we're both getting better at it.
Okay.
And I will, and even though the NBA has their specific rules, I think Wes and other guys have done a lot. You're always trying to find creative ways to, stay within the rules, and it's a lot harder because it's more defined. But I think college being less defined, I think there's still some, let's say, creativity you can to stretch things and to find. And again, like I said, we're both learning it, and there's a lot to learn. And there's still, I think throughout the NCAA, there's still kind of unanswered questions of, what is what, especially with the lawsuits. But yeah, and again, I think it'll get condensed, and there'll be more rules as we go on, and it'll get better.
Utah
But
basketball.
That was the hard.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that was one of the hard things, was like, jumping in it, because, with the settlement and all that, like getting a feel for value, what's worth what. So it's like I said, every day we're getting better and better at it.
Yeah, look, you're jumping into college sports, back into college sports at the most complicated time in college sports. Was that a bonus for you because you like to take on a challenge, or was that an obstacle you had to overcome as you made this decision, because it is a lot more convoluted than it was 10 years ago?
It is more difficult, but there is, I think it was like the train nobody was going to be able to stop, was players getting paid. But I think, I guess it's my hope too, but it kind of simplifies it in a way, if that makes sense, when it comes to money. And hopefully there'll be, some, I don't know, more rules around it. But I think, it kind of simplifies it in a way, because it, a lot of times when you're talking dollar amounts, it becomes cut and dry. Now we're I'm going to avoid the bidding wars, and I don't want a kid just to come because we pay him the most. I think we have more to offer than that. So there's like that fine line. But yeah, it is complicated, but in some ways it could end up simplifying the process, if that makes sense at all. At least I hope it will.
Yeah, I hope you're right. Utah head basketball coach Alex Jensen, my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show. You're still balancing two jobs right now. What does that look like on a day-to-day basis?
It's I go to two different places in my mind, but the people in Dallas have been great to me, and I just felt like it was the right thing to do to finish out this season, and so and I felt bad for the players and stuff, because I wasn't there, and I tried to fly up a couple times and meet all of them, but no, it's been difficult in a way to get going, because I'm trying to be methodical, and I want to do it right. And it's definitely it's wild, but I think it kind of helps me too, because I think the NBA's, like, with the money, is becoming more like the NCAA is becoming more like the NBA. So it's kind of fun going back and forth. Like, I'll come out of a game and I have a bunch of text messages and players I need to call. So it's been busy, but I have enjoyed it. And I think it's kind of made the transition even more interesting.
All right, so as you're kind of creating this vision in your mind and you want to put that into practice, what is the ideal composition of a Run the Utes basketball team? Because you do have the transfer portal available to you. Obviously, high school recruiting is still important. We know that there's the one-and-done model type guys. We're seeing a team like Houston going to play for a national championship tonight with success on a level not built with the one-and-done guys. So in the perfect Alex Jensen world, what does a Utah basketball roster look like composition-wise?
This will forever be evolving too, but I think it's one that's balanced positionally. And I think, I think the player development part of it is huge. I think there's still a place for younger players that can develop. And, you talk about a culture, but a place where guys want to come, and agents, a place where they know that their players will come and get coached and get better. And I think it'll kind of speak for itself. But again, You can't avoid, if you get good players, you're not going to be able to avoid the one and done. And I don't think we're going to go out and compete for the $4 or $5 million player, but I think our model is kind of unique right now. I think more colleges will get that way, but I think I just want it to be one of a place where players want to come. They're going to get paid, but I don't want that to be the sole reason. But I think it'll be balanced with older and younger players, so then you can have some continuity. And if you're going to build a program or culture, that's always good you're not changing the entire team every year. So I'm going to try to avoid as much of that as I can.
Alex Jensen, head basketball coach at the University of Utah, my guest for a couple more minutes on the Sean O'Connell Show. What makes you so good at player development? That seems to be the reputation you've built through your tenure in the D League, now called the G League, and in the NBA. What makes you so good with player development, Alex?
You know what? I've been very lucky in my career. I think the first thing is the coaches I've been around. Coach Majerus, my college coach and my mentor. He's been the best teacher of the game I've been around, and I think having played at different levels has helped me. But then coaching, being an assistant in college and a head coach in the D League, and then I've worked under some good head coaches in the NBA. Even going back to Ty Corbin, I was with Quinn Snyder for a long time. I learned a ton from him, and and Jason Kidd here as well. And I've been around a lot of places that have prided themselves on player development. I think I've seen things that the good way to do it and the not so good way to do it. So I think my experience with that will help, and I'm trying to speak to that when we're talking with recruits.
What have your conversations been like with players that were on this Utah basketball roster in the 2024-2025 cycle?
That's been the fun part about it. Like, even when the rumors swirled, I hear from a lot of teammates that I haven't heard from a while, but I think they're excited about it, and that's the best part, is because it kind of brings me back into contact with all those guys, even the guys that I didn't play with, the guys that played before me and the guys that went after me. And I'm gonna try to get, because you forget about the great players that have played at the University of Utah over time, but hopefully that's one of the things when I get there and get settled, is I can bring them back into the program and the university, and because I think they want to be. But yeah, it's just been fun to talk to them again and get their opinion about me taking the job or not taking the job. I've been getting a lot of advice.
Yeah, I was going to say, how many good ideas have you gotten? How many bad ideas have you gotten from people that you know?
Well, I haven't been to use them. I've gotten plenty of both, I think. So.
All right. Well, I'm going to give you one. Okay, Coach.
Okay.
So I think it would be important for the connection from glory days to present day of Utah basketball, if just maybe one game, you can only do one, you did a kind of throwback night where all of your current players have to wear the super baggy shorts, the super baggy jerseys, and maybe even a baggy long sleeve tee underneath. What do you think?
Oh, I love it. Yep. I was just watching a game the other day, and the old UNLV team, that was why I wore a baggy shirt underneath mine. But yeah, it's come full circle, but definitely. I love the baggy. We'll bring it back.
What's the number one thing that you can touch on, that you can bring back from the Majerus era? And maybe, if you're willing to share, what's something that you're like, well, it worked for us, but it's not going to work today from the Majerus era?
I don't think you have enough time left in your show.
That's probably true.
To talk about, I think, the one thing is Majerus' teams, that nobody was better prepared. Nobody played harder, tough. And, and that's the one thing I want to do. I want to have, kids that like to play. We're going to compete, that are tough, that want to get better. And, you just have to be a little more smooth around the edges, I think, in the way you handle everything. But no, hopefully nobody's going to be able to replicate the success he had in his time here, but hopefully there'll be some, because that's where I take a lot of my, whatever you want to call it, philosophy or coaching style from is from him. So hopefully there'll be some similarities between the glory days and now, and and it's just it was the arena was full and you had good teams that competed.
What does the timeline look like in your mind for getting Utah basketball to be what it needs to be?
It's a good question, Sean. Like speaking to a lot of coaching friends, like I want to do it right. I don't want to be in a rush. And finishing in Dallas is, complicated that. I knew it would, but I'm just kind of trying to take it one step at a time. That was the one thing, I told everybody, like I spent probably too much time, but it worked out really good, was, the GM, right? And roster, balancing the roster. But no, I think it could be, I strongly feel, no, it's going to be good. How fast, who knows? But I definitely want it to be, build it where it's, not just good for a year or two, where it can be sustained, if that makes sense, by getting the right people around the program, the right players. And I think then after that, it makes recruiting people to come a lot easier.
As far as, bringing those right people in and filling out the rest of your staff, we know Wilcox, we know Chilius. Do you have a timeline on when you want to have the rest of the staff in place? And I think I heard you say you don't want it to be a large staff. You don't want to just do this giant staff. But I guess, what does the number look like for you?
Well, it kind of depends on the guys that come. But yeah, I don't imagine there being more than 5 or 6 coaches. And I think to support Wes and his role, I think part of the staff, I want guys that are more interested in taking that front office, non-basketball side, if that makes sense. Obviously, we'll all be in communication and integrated, but, just 5 or 6 coaches, and I see all of us doing things. Like, I'm always fascinated by the player development aspect that's in the NBA and in college now. And like everybody is I'm a player development coach, and everybody should be involved in that. And I don't want to like separate duties necessarily, but kind of like bring everybody together doing the same thing. But yeah, I see it being a balance of, around 6 coaches and, guys that work well together. And I could say this about, Wes and Chill, who have already come on. They left money and good situations to come because they wanted to be here. And I think the other people I'm talking to will be the same thing. Like either they took a lot less money or they left a good, stable situation to be here. And I think that'll, kind of filter out to the players that we want to get as well.
Coach, just a couple more things. I could pick your brain all day, but we're going to respect your time, I promise. How unique is the Utah basketball job? We spent so many years in this market, maybe being even self-conscious about, hey, we're in Salt Lake City. It's not this big place. And, we know the Mormon culture is heavily influential here. And is that a challenge or an asset in recruiting and all that? How unique is Utah basketball as a job in 2025?
It's kind of unique because even talking to my colleagues in the NBA now, since I've taken it, like they forget all the good players that have played there. And I know when I graduated and left, I know that it was in the top 10 all winningest programs in the country, and people forget about the rich history. You forget that Larry Bird, Magic Johnson Final Four was played in the Huntsman Center, and no, it is very unique. Salt Lake's a unique place. Even in the NBA, players, there's a preconception about the place, but when they get there, they really enjoy it. And there's a rich basketball history throughout the state, not just at the University of Utah. So it is unique. Utah's a unique place, and so is the university. But I think the interesting thing now is the money, I think it's opened, for all sports, it's opened the recruiting area for guys to come. But no, it is unique. It's a good question, but it's hard to explain to people who haven't been there.
We had Kyle Winningham on the show last week, and we asked him about you, and he expressed that he's a big fan and was a big fan when you were a player and is still a big fan now. And we heard that you and Coach Witt maybe broke bread or had a conversation about what it's like to be a head coach of a program at the University of Utah right now. What could you tell me about that conversation?
Well, I didn't. I spoke with him when I came to campus for a few minutes. It's something I'd love to do in the future because, that's what we're going to hopefully try to do is replicate the success that he's had. I mean, what he's done there is remarkable. And I knew him in my playing days, when Utah football wasn't what it was today, but now the powerhouse that it is, it's been incredible what he's doing. Ours is a little bit different because we're trying to get back to where we were. But, yeah, he's definitely somebody that I'd love to ask questions and get advice from because, what he's done has been pretty remarkable. I don't think anybody could have envisioned that 20 years ago.
Well, Coach, I could pick your brain all day, but like I said, we're going to respect your time. Can't tell you how much I appreciate you giving us a few minutes. Looking forward to seeing more of you, hearing more from you. Good luck with finishing out the season with Dallas and anything we can do to help your efforts at the University of Utah. Obviously, we're happy to help on the home of the Utes.
All right. Hey, appreciate it, Sean. And I'm looking forward to getting there full time.
That's Alex Jensen, new head coach of the University of Utah men's basketball program. We'll unpack some of what he said next on the Sean O'Connell Show. Coming at you live from Les Schwab Tires today on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM.
Nice knocked away by Chinyelu. Pettiford never got the shot off. Martin. Oh! Martin with a signature slam. Sent it in. Big fella.
Elijah Martin, poster dunk. That was in transition. Florida had a big win over Auburn Saturday in the Final Four. It'll be Florida versus Houston for the national championship tonight. That sound courtesy of CBS Sports. Iron Eagle Bill Raftery on a call. We just caught up with the head coach, the new head coach of Utah men's basketball, Alex Jensen. Big shout out to the sports information department up there, to James and Alonzo for setting that thing up. Obviously, to Alex Jensen for carving out 20 minutes in what is a very, very busy schedule right now, as he is an assistant coach in the NBA and a head coach in college basketball simultaneously, trying to juggle those two things. And as far as we can tell, doing so relatively successfully, as continuous good news comes out of Utah. The hiring of Raph Chilius, and the rumor is the wrong word. Rumor has a negative connotation to it. The scuttlebutt, that's a fun one. The scuttlebutt is that Alex Jensen will be filling out his assistant staff hopefully relatively soon, and signs pointing in the positive direction that it will be the kind of folks that you're hoping it will be. Out of respect for Coach's time and a request, he said, please, let's not get into the names I'm going to add to the coaching staff, because they don't want to interfere with any kind of conversations that are happening. We're happy to accommodate that. That's totally fine here on the Home of the Utes. So just what I have been hearing, what hashtag sources have to say, is that all things heading in the right direction for Utah basketball, which has been the case since they announced the hire was happening. And it was fun to have a conversation with Alex. If you missed it live, you can find it on demand on the ESPN 700 app, and you can always find it at ESPN700sports.com. So one of the interesting things out of that conversation, at least the most interesting things for me, was, I asked him about jumping back into college sports when there's so many people trying to get out of college sports, right? I mean, guys who've been longtime head coaches, they certainly have a different judgment on things than Alex Jensen does right now, having never been a head coach in college basketball. But a lot of those guys are retiring, or they're doing what they can. In the NFL, obviously, guys are taking NFL jobs that are lateral moves after being head coaches in the college football world, at least from a salary standpoint. Some of those are serious, downward moves. But in any case, why get into college sports right now? And, he kind of downplayed, for lack of a better term, I get it. It's complicated, but it also, knowing what the formula is, that you have to have the right amount of NIL, and you have to have the right kind of people, that's not overly complicated in his mind. I look at this task, and I'm like, this is daunting, man. You got to re-recruit your own players, not just once, but probably every single year. You have to continually convince the boosters, the donors, the whomevers, the power players that your program's headed in the right direction. And you got to make all those things come together at the right time while you're also graduating kids. You're maintaining an academic progress level as we continue the theater of academics in college sports. And, he doesn't view it that way. Alex Jensen is just like, no, it's not as – it kind of simplifies it in a way when you bring the money into it. Okay. That's encouraging to hear from the guy who's actually going to be in charge of this program.
And you'd expect an NBA guy to think of it that way, though, too, OC. I mean, it was surprising to hear him say that, but at the same time, it was also he's actually used to a world where players demand exorbitant amount of money, and he feels that it's almost simple because he's used to that world too, which is also fascinating.
Well, yeah, and he brought in Wes Wilcox, assistant GM from the Sacramento Kings, a guy who's been in that world, and Alex Jensen, without saying the quiet part out loud, was kind of like, I mean, the inference that I draw from that, whether I'm supposed to be doing so or not, is that like, hey, I'm a pro coach, and this is a pro sport now, which we know it is. And so for him, it's not, the transition is not the same as for a guy who was doing it in college basketball a certain way 10 years ago, and now he's got to adjust to this new way of thinking, this new way of recruiting, this new way of doing, the NIL pressure, all that kind of stuff. Alex Jensen comes in tabula rasa, man. He's like, as a head coach at least, he's like, yep, okay, well, I guess this is how it's going to be done now. And also, when he says, with that kind of like comfort in his voice, like, it kind of simplifies it in a way. That's not the voice of a man. Those are not the words of a man who feels like he is not going to be equipped to compete. He would not be saying like, yeah, you know what? It actually kind of like makes it a little bit easier to understand. He would not be saying that, ladies and gentlemen, if he was afraid that there was going to be no NIL money for Utah basketball to distribute to players that he wants. He made it clear he's not just going to go after the guys who need to be paid $5 million a year. Don't expect A.J. DeBonsa-type recruits. But he did say that, well, he did say that, like, it doesn't have to be the top dollar guys. We got to get the right people in here. But he's not concerned about the money. And that's been a theme of our conversation about this coaching hire since we heard that it was in the works. Like, if you can make this happen at Utah basketball, which they did, there is a financial commitment. And that clearly has given the coach some comfort in knowing that he's jumping back into a college athletics world that requires you to compete financially. He is a smart man. He is a basketball mind, but he is also enough of a business mind, enough of a salary cap mind to know that, like, hey, I know what kind of players I'm looking for. I know I can get those guys with what this university has promised me. So, again, go check out the article. See if you draw the same inferences that I did. Not the article, the interview. Go check out the interview. And
yeah,
right. We have not transcribed it into an article.
We have not yet. Working on that. No. I also thought it was interesting to hear him say not only did he not want a massive amount of assistant coaches on his staff, he was saying I think he landed on 6 tops. He said around 5 or 6, and he said around 6. So somewhere in there. And then he said that he wants guys that also are interested in front office type roles to be his assistant coach, to work with Wes Wilcox in that regard, which another inference we can make is that he's going to let Wes Wilcox be the GM that he was in the pros. You go out, talk to players, probably. You go out, tell me how much money we have to offer some of these guys. Obviously, Alex is going to be involved in conversations with the recruiting players, but it seems like he wants to lean on Wes Wilcox to do a lot of that part as well.
Yeah, I took that from his words also, that, you know, I straight up asked him, like, is he going to recruit for you? You going to recruit for him? Who gets to decide? And it's going to be a collaborative effort, which is how it is in the best scenarios in the NBA, at least. You know, coaches, even if it's not in their title, typically do have some personnel input, and in the good situations, like I said. And, you know, that's how it's going to be. This coach, Mark Harlan, made it clear when he joined Spence Checketts, what was that, about a week and a half ago now, that Mark Harlan thought that it would be like Wes Wilcox reports to Alex Jensen and not the other way around. And that is probably the on-paper thing, but Alex Jensen clarified that it's going to be a collaborative effort and that, you know, they're going to work together. One question I would have asked that I didn't get in, I didn't feel like we had the time to get in at the end there, the international player. Because Alex played with guys that were, you know, before it was super popular to have international players, Alex played with guys that were big-time contributors that had the international flair during the Majerus era. And I feel like that is a place where Utah can win. Now, you're not finding as many diamonds in the rough as you used to. Every country now has a developmental program that is funneling guys into not only Division I basketball but into the NBA. And so you're not going to, like, sneak up on anybody. You're going to have to pay those guys also. You're going to have to find the NIL resources to make Salt Lake City an appealing spot for them. But I hope I'm not taking too many liberties here, James. Like Lauri Markkanen, when you're talking about guys from a certain part of Europe especially, Utah is a really appealing place for those individuals. Some guys want to get out and they want to go to the big city and they want to see what America is like. They want to go play you want to go play at UCLA. They want to go play at UNLV. They want to see what it's like. Other guys are just like, man, this actually reminds me a lot more of Estonia or Finland or whatever than anywhere else I can find in the United States of America. So we'll see if they lean into that at all. I think that the international aspect of recruiting is going to be important for Utah basketball moving forward. I don't think that Alex will shy away from that. He's been coaching. The best players he's coached in the NBA were foreign-born players for the most part.
It's true. Right? It's true. We talked about how he is credited with developing Rudy Gobert into probably a Hall of Famer, right? That's a Frenchman. And Luka Doncic most recently before the trade happened. Joe Ingles on this roster. I was going to say Australia has been, for the Jazz and for Utah basketball, has been quite and football for that matter, has been quite the
that's right.
Quite the boon recruiting wise. Like, we've had a ton of Aussies around here. There's got to be, we think of like Scandinavians liking it here, but because of Lauri Markkanen and others, but the Aussies seem to like it here in Salt Lake too. So maybe he can continue to tap into that market. Andrew Bogut is a big part of the Boomers, the Australian men's basketball program, and since he retired since he retired for a second time from the NBA, so he can tap into that pipe. He ought to be able to tap into that pipeline as well going forward as the Runnin' Utes head coach. It'll be fascinating to watch.
Bring me another Bogut and another Luke Neville. Okay, I want both in a Utah uniform. All right. So go check out the interview if you were not able to listen to it live on demand on the ESPN 700 Sports app. You can do it at ESPN700sports.com as well. All right. We'll take another quick one here. We're at Les Schwab Tires in Lehigh. It's been a great day so far. I still have more bags to give away, roadside emergency kits and the stadium bags for you to take to Rice Eccles or to the Huntsman or whatever. And we have a round of golf to give away from the Festival of Tees. We're going to do that with our topical trivia. You can listen to Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell. You can listen to The Drive with Spence Checketts. We'll be giving away Festival of Tees rounds of golf powered by the Utah Golf Association. Let's see, Mountain Dell? Is that where we're giving around 18 holes at Mountain Dell?
Yes, 18 holes to Mountain Dell to lucky listener who's been paying attention and listening to today's show.
Okay, this is going to cause me problems, James. I have all these friends who love golf so much, right? And they're always like, dude, you could get golf rounds. And I don't love to golf. They're like, you could get us on courses that we can't get to ourselves. And that's, now that they listen and we're giving this stuff away, they're going to be mad if I'm not, like, finagling it so they get the prize, James. You've just caused me problems.
Well, you can blame it on me. You can say I didn't tell James your name. James doesn't know your name or your phone number.
Yeah, can't get past James Peterson.
So
can't be done.
So you go ahead and text the answer. Put your money where your mouth is. You really support me. Well, then prove that you're listening to the show.
All right.
And maybe James will pick. Maybe you'll be the first one. Your number will be the first one. I don't see names. We don't have caller ID on our text line other than just the phone number. So maybe they'll be the first one to text in. Tell your buddies to text in a few minutes. How about that?
All right. I will ask a question. Hopefully you were listening to the Scott Mitchell interview portion of the show today. We had a fun little number that came out of that one, spoiler alert. That might be your trivia question today. 18 holes at Mountain Dell as part of our Festival of Tees brought to you by the Utah Golf Association. We're still at Les Schwab Tires. I still have roadside emergency kits to give away. 1200 East, just off the corner of the Timpanogos Highway. As you head east, we'll be on the south side of the road. You'll see the ESPN 700 van. And we'll get a tank race update, give away some prize next on the Sean O'Connell Show. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. All right, tank race update coming from James Peterson, and then we'll turn you over to the drive with Spence Checketts. We're at Les Schwab Tires in Lehigh. They've been great to us today. $120 off a brand new set of premium tires. They can do it in about an hour, and they've got something for every vehicle under the sun. So Les Schwab Tires in Lehigh or any of the other locations up and down the Wasatch Front. Come say hello. Topical trivia, 18 holes to Mountain Dell as part of our Festival of Tees brought to you by the Utah Golf Association. We were talking about Utah's offensive line. That got me and Scott Mitchell talking about great NFL offensive lines. Jonathan Ogden gave up how many sacks in his decade-plus long NFL career? How many career sacks did Jonathan Ogden give up? 877-353-0700. If you have the correct answer, you'll get 18 holes to Mountain Dell. All right, James, as we await correct answers coming in, what is the tank race update as we're in the last week of the NBA regular season?
6 days left, OC, of the NBA regular season, then play-in tournament in the playoffs. Cannot wait. Of course, these teams will not be involved, including our Utah Jazz. Here's what happened over the weekend. The Jazz lost twice. They did their part. They beat the Pacers on Friday, the Hawks on Sunday. They allowed over 140 in each game. 140 to the Pacers, 147 to the Hawks yesterday. They're doing their part probably more than Will Hardy would like them to, even OC, in keeping pace in the tank race as the number one team in the tank race. Hornets lost twice as well to the Kings on Friday, Bulls on Sunday. Pelicans lost a couple of times to Lakers on Friday, Bucks on Sunday. T-Wolves beat the Sixers. That was just 114-109. So close to a good win in the secondary tank for the T-Wolves. Wizards lost to the Celtics on Sunday. No tank-related games tonight, OC. The next time the Jazz play is Wednesday versus the Blazers. There are 2 NBA games, and neither of them have any of the teams that I just listed involved, because they don't play a ton of games on the NCAA National Championship game night, understandably. Blazers on Wednesday, first of the final 2 home games of the season. Jazz clinched their first sub-20 win season in franchise history with Sunday's loss. So the most they can win is 19 at this point, because they only have 3 games left. Standings, Jazz are in first still, 16-63. Wizards 17-61. Jazz still up a game in the win column with only 3 games left. Wizards game and a half back. Hornets 3.5 back at 19-59. Like I said, technically the Jazz could still get to 19 wins, so Hornets not technically out of the tank race. Wizards, of course, can get to 19 or 20 wins. Pelicans are still in fourth at 21-57. Now, an update there. They can't get to 1 or 2. The highest they can get is the 3rd spot in the tank race. They're they're 2 games back, so that's not as likely either. Yeah, those dumb birds. They won just a little too much. They're probably going to end up 4th in the tank race standings, but they still technically could move up to 3. Where the T-Wolves, they're tied for 5th. There's a 4-way tie for 5th place right now in the West. The lowest the T-Wolves can be is 8th, so they'll at least be a play-in team, but they're really in the mix. Like, they're technically in the mix for 3rd still. It's tight. Okay, so
that secondary tank could end up being a thing for the Utah Jazz.
Absolutely. They need the T-Wolves to finish 7th or 8th place, and then they would need to lose both the play-in games for them to miss the playoffs and that be a lottery pick. Feels unlikely, to say the least, but it's still in the mix for the T-Wolves to miss the playoffs, technically. Mavs, because we're looking at when Alex Jensen, who we just had on, when he can get here full-time, they're in 10th place, which sounds good, but they're 2.5 games ahead of the 11th place Suns, and the Mavs only have 3 games left. Suns have 4. So that means the Mavs' magic number is just 2. That means if they win 2 games, or if they get a win paired with a Suns loss or 2 Suns losses the rest of the season, they're going to be a play-in team. So it looks like they're going to play at least 1 more game next week, but maybe the Suns will find some motivation they haven't had basically all year long and get into the play-in. We shall see. No one to scout for tonight's game technically. No projected lottery picks or guys slotted to be taken by the Jazz with the T-Wolves pick, which will be around 20th overall, OC. But I will say this. If Florida's Walter Clayton Jr. is still available around that 20th pick, it'd be hard to pass on him. So maybe you can watch tonight, keep a close eye on Walter Clayton Jr., because that's a guy that if he drops that far, which I'm not sure he will, the Jazz would probably make that a priority to get him at around 20 overall with the T-Wolves pick.
Listen, forget everything I said about Cooper Flagg as the number 1 overall pick. He missed that half turnaround fadeaway jumper.
Not a winning player.
It's not a winning player, not clutch. Okay.
Over the back foul, too, when you don't need one?
Yeah, what are you doing?
Come on now.
Come on. No more stooping or drooping for you, bud. You're out of here. Shout out to our United States Postal Service workers who are listening to the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700. Just gave away another emergency roadside kit. I hope that's for the personal vehicle, because the government should be providing the emergency roadside kit for the
just a
mail truck.
backup roadside kit for the mail truck, I suppose. No, keep that for yourselves, our great postal workers. Who one of them being able to pick one of those kits up. That's awesome.
The correct answer on the semi-obscure how many sacks did Jonathan Ogden give up during his career? Again, we started with a Utah conversation. We got there because Scott Mitchell spent a lot of time in the NFL, and we were talking about a great offensive lineman. In more than 10 years in the NFL, Jonathan Ogden gave up 9 career sacks. That is not even 1 sack per year for those of you who are not great at math. The guy was a freak of nature and an incredible player, and anyone who played behind him was the beneficiary of, I guess, God's gifts to the Ogden family. Just an incredible, incredible player. So 9. And by the way, if you want to go down a rabbit hole, start looking for the evaluations of Spencer Fano that are coming out, the way too earlys, and who's the best players, the best offensive lineman in college football. It'll get you pretty excited. Maybe too excited, but it'll get you pretty excited as a Utah football fan, what people think of the young man formerly from Timpview High School, if I'm not mistaken. All right, James, thanks for the tank race update. Thanks for lining up great guests on the show today. Can we tell people what's coming on Wednesday? Can we tell, or should we hold off on that?
Let's go ahead. Semi-significant name coming out of Utah football on Wednesday. One Devin Dampier.
That's the projected starting quarterback, the New Mexico transfer. Devin Dampier will join us on the show on Wednesday.
Yeah, shout out to our guy Junk for arranging that for us.
All right, yeah, all right.
We appreciate that, and we're so excited about that.
Weddle's going to stop by as we talk about spring football and talk about the upcoming NFL draft. Of course, he was at one point drafted into the NFL before his stellar career, so he's going to join us at noon on Wednesday, and then Devin Dampier at 12:30. We got a great show lined up for you tomorrow. We've got the Drive with Spence Checketts coming up next. Make sure, even though you didn't make it while I was down here broadcasting live, come by Les Schwab Tires in Lehigh. They have a fancy popcorn machine here. No scoop. You push a button, and it dispenses the popcorn into the bag. Worth the trip by itself, but, of course, take advantage of America's best tire warranty and save up to $120 instantly. No mail-in rebates, nothing fancy, just instant savings when you buy a set of 4 premium tires and tell them OC sent you. Everybody, have a great and wonderful afternoon. Thanks for listening. We'll be with you again tomorrow on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network.